Chapter 1390. It was raining heavily that day. It was as if a river in the sky had burst its banks and water was pouring down from the sky. After so many years, many details were already blurred. The only thing that left a deep impression on her was that the rain was very heavy. At that time, it was night. She was copying Chi LV in her room. She had played so much during the day that she had to do some homework at night, lest her father came back and lectured her. The wet nurse was beside her, picking up the soles of her shoes to accompany her. The sound of the rain outside was loud. From time to time, a flash of lightning lit up the window, accompanied by the rumbling of thunder. So when there was a hurried knock on the door, she didn't hear it immediately. It wasn't until there was another knock that the wet nurse got up to open the door. She also looked out curiously because her father said that he would only be back in a few days. Who could it be so late at night? She was not afraid of bad people. No bad people dared to come to her house. Her father specialized in catching bad people. The moment the wet nurse opened the door, she only heard a bang. A black shadow fell into the house. The black shadow was lying on the ground. His eyes were closed tightly, his lips were bruised, and there was a big cut on his neck. Blood had not flowed out completely. Her father was back. Later, a pair of hands covered her eyes. Grandpa Wu seemed to be cursing angrily. She couldn't hear anything. Her ears were buzzing, and then there was the rumbling of thunder. It was not pitch black in front of her eyes, but dark red. There was blood everywhere. That bloody and hideous cut had always been exposed in front of her eyes for so many years. She could always see it. They said that her father committed suicide. They said that the best constable in the world did not investigate the case well and committed suicide out of guilt. She only remembered that her father said that the glory of the blue metal was worth defending with everything in one's life. When many voices began to quarrel again, Lin Yuxi opened her eyes in the darkness. She sat up calmly and left the bed. In the darkness, she walked to the table against the wall. Her boudoir should be different from the residence of any woman in the world. The room was full of bottles, all kinds of files, legalist classics, and some strange evidence. But it was not chaotic. Everything was sorted and arranged in a neat and orderly manner. Her father said that things must be done in an organized manner. No matter how complicated the case was, as long as all the details were sorted out, the truth would be clear at a glance. She would listen to him. She worked hard to learn from Chi LV and did not want to play for many years. Her heart was beating very fast. It was very tiring. She mixed some herbs according to the ratio and began to grind them. The wooden pestle was in the stone mortar, tuck, 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 tuck. Judging from Gong Sun Yu's behavior, he obviously knew something. But since he didn't want to say it, Jiang Wang didn't want to force him. Everyone has their own choices. You can be right, but that doesn't mean that others are wrong. Blaming others with oneself is a demon among demons. Perhaps an unscrupulous person would be able to get some information out of Gong Sun Yu. Even if Yang Jing were to make a move, it would be impossible for him to stay. However, if Jiang Wang was willing to do whatever it took, why would he go through so much trouble to find Gong Sun Yu? Everyone was different. There were things that they would do and things that they would not do. By the time they returned to Linzi, it was already dawn. Under the cover of the shadow guards, Jiang Wang quietly returned to his mansion as if nothing had happened. That night, he did not find anything. He was not depressed. Gong Sun Yu's situation was a clue in itself. As a disciple of the Changsheng Palace, he cut off his tongue. As a confidant of the Changsheng Palace, he chose to live in seclusion. When exactly did he leave the Changsheng Palace? What happened to the Changsheng Palace during that time? There were not many things that could push Gong Sun Yu to this point. The answer was in pain. The Shadow Guard investigation would take some time. For the time being, there was no news from Bea. Jiang Wang cultivated in the mansion for a while. When a steward came to remind him of the time, he leisurely went out. There was a long sword on his left waist and a white jade on his right. His blue robe was upright and upright. He was a good youth in Linzi. The carriage had been prepared long ago. After picking up Jiang Wang, the coachman whipped his whip and headed straight for the Marquis mansion. A few days ago, Li Longchuan had mentioned that he should go to the mansion for a meal today. After all, he had already agreed. Jiang Wang would not easily break the promise. The carriage stopped in front of the Marquis mansion. Although the coachman was newly hired, he had been specially trained by the steward. He knew the rules and was about to come forward with the invitation. The steward of the Marquis mansion had already come out to greet him. "Are you from the Golden Melon Warriors family?" When he saw Jiang Wang get out of the carriage, he hurriedly greeted him. "Lord Zhu, my young master has already instructed us to let you in directly when you arrive." The steward led the way for Jiang Wang while calling for someone to greet the old Jiang family's coachman. It was not the first time he had come to the Marquis mansion. Jiang Wang followed him in with ease. After a few steps, a handsome young master with a jade belt on his forehead strode out. "Brother Jiang." He waved enthusiastically with a bright smile. Jiang Wang smiled as well. "Didn't you say it was just a meal? Why did you come out to greet me so formally?" "I can't help it," Li Longchuan deliberately said sourly. "Don't you know how to curry favor in the officialdom? Now that I have an official position, I have to think about my future. You are a third-rank Golden Melon Warrior." When it came to being sarcastic, he was far inferior to Su Gao. Jiang Wang did not respond to his words at all. He looked around and asked, "Who else did you invite today?" Li Longchuan pulled him by the arm and walked straight in. "Just you." Jiang Wang was pulled in big strides by him. He even took the time to ask, "Speaking of which, we can eat anywhere. Why do we have to come to your house?" Li Longchuan rolled his eyes. "My cook can't afford to serve you." "What do you mean?" The courtyard of the Marquis mansion was deep. Li Longchuan grew up in such an environment and was born with a noble air. Jiang Wang started from scratch and earned his current position, but he would not show any cowardice. He laughed and joked along the way. When they arrived at the dining hall, Jiang Wang realized that this meal was unusual. He almost had the urge to turn around and run away. In the dining hall sat old Madame Li, the current Marquis Li Jingyan, Marquis Li Hanshi, Donghua scholar Li Zhengshu. It was not that he felt guilty when he saw the elders. The problem was that other than them, only Li Fengyao and Li Longchuan were in the dining hall. It was obviously a family banquet, and the most private kind. He came in such a hurry that it was a bit of a spoil sport. Moreover, if he knew that these elders were here, he would not have dared to come during the mealtime. Not to mention waiting before dawn. He would have come 2 to 4 hours in advance to show that he, Jiang Qingyang, was well-educated and well-mannered. Now, it seemed that the whole table was waiting for him. Other than Li Longchuan, who else could wait for him? Therefore, he was in fear and trepidation. "Good boy." Old Madame Li smiled and waved. "Come, sit next to me." Old Madame Li sat at the head of the table. On her right sat Li Zhengshu. Next to Li Zhengshu were Li Jingyan and his wife. Although Li Jingyan's title was higher, Li Zhengshu was older. There was no problem for him to sit like this in the family banquet. On old Madame Li's left, there was an empty seat for Li Fengyao. On Li Fengyao's left, Li Longchuan had already walked over and sat down. Clearly, that empty seat was reserved for Jiang Wang, the guest. In front of this old lady, Jiang Wang really had no right to refuse. Although he did not understand, he still bowed to old Madame Li, Duke Ruiqing and his wife, and Scholar Donghua one by one. Then, he walked over and sat next to old Madame Li. He was the greatest contributor to the Battle of Xingyue Plain. He dared to ask who was the #1 person under the immortal descent. But now he sat next to the old lady in a daze like a little quail. "Today is grandmother's birthday banquet. She wanted to invite you over," Li Fengyao said softly, sitting upright. Jiang Wang quickly got up and bowed to the old lady. "I'm too rude." If he had known that today was old Madame Li's birthday banquet, Jiang Qingyang would have given her a gift no matter how poor he was. Now he came empty-handed. If outsiders knew, they would laugh at him. "Sit down and talk." The old lady took his hand and pushed him back to the chair. She said angrily, "You just came to Linzi not long ago. Where did you learn these useless courtesies from? Was it Longchuan? Our Li family has been a family of generals for generations. We don't care about these useless things." Li Longchuan complained, "I don't even know what courtesies are. How can I teach him?" Jiang Wang looked at him resentfully. He said helplessly, "Old Madam didn't let me say it. How could I dare to say it? Good boy, I asked Longchuan to coax you here." The old lady patted Jiang Wang's hand. I'm old. I can't stand noise, and I don't want them to do anything. I just want to close the door and sit with my family. You don't blame me, do you? As soon as she said this, Li Zhengshu just smiled. Li Jingyin's hand that was holding the cup paused. Marquise Li Han next to him could no longer suppress the surprise in her eyes. Obviously, this big family did not know that the old lady would say such a thing in advance. In other words, she already regarded Jiang Wang as a family member. Jiang Wang was really flattered. With the status of the Li family of Sherman, if old Madame Li wanted to hold a formal birthday banquet, most of Linzi City would be alarmed. Jiang Wang's carriage might not be able to squeeze in today, especially at the critical moment of noble consort Lei's case. After he was threatened through the coachman, the old lady was backing him up. It's Jiang Wang's honor to sit with you. Jiang Wang hesitated for a long time and finally said, Grandma, good boy. The old lady smiled and said, let's start the banquet. The servants who had been waiting for a long time naturally filed in and served all kinds of delicacies. At the banquet, the old lady kept putting food on Jiang Wang's plate. She asked about this and that. At the whole table, only the two of them were talking. Everyone else was eating in silence. Only the old lady said a few words when she called their names. From this, it could be seen that the old lady's status in this family was indeed supreme. Jiang Wang was a little uncomfortable, but there was no need to deny that his somewhat troubled mood during this period of time gradually calmed down in this kind of domestic conversation. Since he was very young, he and his father depended on each other. He had never met his own grandparents before. He had never experienced this kind of familial relationship with his elders, even though they were separated by generations. If his grandmother was here, she would also be as kind as old Madame Li. Unknowingly, the banquet came to an end. The matriarch drank the fragrant tea and looked at Jiang Wang kindly. Grandma is old. Once I'm full, I'll be muddle-headed, so I won't drag you around and talk nonsense. Let Feng Yao accompany you to walk around the garden. Grandma, you don't have to worry. Li Longchuan stood up and said, I'll take Brother Jiang to the outer room. He sat down again and silently filled another bowl of soup for himself. The old lady retracted her gaze and looked at Jiang Wang with a smile. No matter how slow Jiang Wang was, he could see the old lady's meaning and couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Li Fengyao stood up naturally. Let's go, Qingyang. Okay. Jiang Wang had nothing else to say. He bowed to the elders one by one and got up to leave with Li Fengyao. Old Madame Li naturally called them good children. Li Zhengshu and Li Jingyan both responded with a smile. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but only the Marquise of Destroyer City didn't look too good. Jiang Wang didn't have the right to care, and he didn't have the personality to care about these things. He just walked beside Li Fengyao. He was a little inexplicably nervous and a little at a loss of what to do. It was the first time he was led by such an obvious red string, and the other party was the cold and elegant Li Fengyao. The old lady looked at the backs of the two children with a smile. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was. When their figures disappeared, her smile also disappeared. Look, what a polite child, she said neither lightly nor heavily. It's a pity that some people are not as sensible as a child at such an old age. The Marquise of Destroyer City didn't look good, but after all, she didn't dare to say anything. The undercurrent between his grandmother and mother made Li Longchuan's head so big that he wanted to bury his head in the soup bowl. Old Madame Li snorted and gently pushed the teacup. I'm going back to the courtyard, so as not to be an eyesore. Li Zhengshu's eyes were smiling, and he quickly got up to support her. Mother, I'll see you off. Li Jingyan also quickly stood up. Brother, let me see Mother off. Don't. The old lady glanced at him. Marquis is the head of the family. How can you be so rude to see me off? Please sit down. Li Jingyan, who was angry, sat down helplessly. The old lady slowly left the dining hall with the support of Li Zhengshu. As soon as old Madame Li left, Li Han looked at her husband. Marquis, can you be the judge? Li Jingyan felt a big headache and quickly used a sentence pattern. The old lady is old. Let her be happy, he paused. Besides, Jiang Wang is quite good. I'm not saying that Jiang Wang is not good, and I'm not against it. Li Han said discontentedly. Feng Yao is my daughter after all. right? I haven't had much contact with Jiang Wang, and the old lady is already like this. How can I look down on her? Li Longchuan, who had been listening silently for a long time, rolled his eyes. Who can look down on my sister? Is it any of your business? Li Han glared at him. Li Longchuan shrank his neck and continued to drink the soup. Okay. Li Jingyan persuaded. This matter mainly depends on the two children. It's still uncertain whether it will succeed or not. Who among us can make the decision for Feng Yao? Have you finished drinking? Li Han stared at Li Longchuan. If you're done, hurry up. Don't you know you're an eyesore? I'm done. Li Longchuan quickly put down the bowl, lifted his feet, and ran away. Li Han turned back and looked at her husband. She said with grievance, I'm just angry. Other things are fine. I could do whatever she wants. Feng Yao's big matter. She didn't even discuss it with me. Li Jingyan lowered his voice and said, This is the old lady's fault. I know you're wrong, cough. His voice returned to normal. In 2 days, I'll go to Zhuhe to patrol the border. Madam, would you like to come with me? Chapter 1391. Old people are often like this. They've experienced too much and spent most of their lives like this. So they're actually even more stubborn. The tall and slender Li Fengyao walked in the Marquis's estate's garden, causing the flowers to pale in comparison. Her voice, which had always been cold and distant, was somewhat gentle towards Jiang Wang. I don't want you to step into the pits they've stepped into, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes they've made. They want you to have the beauty they see. They stubbornly believe that with their life experiences, they can build everything for you. But the world is changing, and everyone's life is different. You don't have to care too much. I don't. In front of Li Fengyao, Jiang Wang was somewhat unsure of what to say. To him, Li Fengyao's image was first established from Li Longchuan and Su Xianqian's descriptions. These two had been subdued by Li Fengyao, and when they saw Li Fengyao, they were like mice seeing a cat. As their scoundrel friend, Jiang Wang was innately inferior to Li Fengyao. Every time they met, they would be respectful and cautious. Although Li Fengyao didn't treat him as cruelly as the rumors said, and didn't even give him a hard time, compared to Lord Jiang, Li Fengyao herself was natural and unrestrained. As she walked, she said, Which star region is your outer tower located in? The change in topic was too sudden, and Jiang Wang was stunned. What? Li Fengyao stopped and looked at him with her frosty, beautiful eyes. Am I not worthy to discuss cultivation with you? The number 1, Tianjiao de Qi? I absolutely didn't mean that. Jiang Wang hurriedly explained. I was just thinking about the case. Yuheng, it's Yuheng. A trace of a smile flashed through Li Fengyao's eyes. She turned her head and continued to walk forward. The blue metal has its own position. You shouldn't talk to me about the case. Yes, I'm just thinking about it in my heart. I won't say it out loud. At this moment, Jiang Wang was so reserved that he was practically like a child who had just entered school. He could completely understand Li Longchuan and Su Xianqian's feelings. This older sister had a strong aura. But we could talk about cultivation. After all, the path to the great Tao is long, and we can verify each other. Li Fengyao looked up at the sky and saw 2 resplendent stars resonating with each other. Ever since the trip to the 7 Stars Valley, he had never seen Li Fengyao display his strength. It was only today that Jiang Wang discovered that Li Fengyao had already erected 2 star towers without a sound. Thinking about it carefully, it wasn't too surprising. Back in the 7 Stars Valley, when he was still in the Soaring Dragon realm, Li Fengyao was already in the Divine Power Intermansion realm. At that time, he heard that the divine power she had removed was not suitable for battle, but it was beneficial for cultivation. After the 7 Star Valley Secret Realm ended, she had been cultivating on Ice Phoenix Island and had not returned to Linzi for long. And this big sister Fengyao was a ruthless character who had changed her name on the Li clan's genealogy. Even if she was doted on by the elders, how could she change the rules of the Li family at her age if she did not have extraordinary talent? The Star Tower is the foundation of Tao narration, and the outer building realm is the realm of Tao narration. But regardless of Li Fengyao's realm, Jiang Wang was instantly much more relaxed when talking about cultivation. He was uneasy with his sister, but spoke frankly with assurance with his fellow Taoist. It's nothing more than summarizing the knowledge of the past. Even if it's a bit shallow, it has to be close to the truth. The truth is the foundation of Tao querying. With Yuheng as an example, I've always been thinking about what kind of Tao can stand proudly in the universe and shine in all directions. Where do I want to go? What do I want to ask for? Li Fengyao clearly did not expect him to really talk about cultivation, but he still listened attentively. Then he said, speaking of the outer building realm, my father is in charge of the chasing wind army of the 9 soldiers. There's an outer building realm general in the army called Gu Xing who left a deep impression on him. Jiang Wang also did not understand why Li Fengyao suddenly talked about the general in the chasing wind army, but he still listened attentively. Is this person very strong? Li Fengyao glanced at him. He's probably not as strong as you are now, but this person a long time ago, probably in the year 3920 of the Tao calendar, he was dismissed from the army and went out to sea for many years. He's now the island master of Tyrannical Horn Island. Is this person very important in the Chasing Wind army? Jiang Wang asked. If he's important, why would he leave? Why would Chasing Wind let him go? Li Fengyao said faintly. It's just that I thought of him today. Don't you think it's strange? He had a fellow villager. I don't know if they were good friends, but they knew each other. His surname was Du, and his name was Fong. He was a constable in the northern Yamen and also an outer building realm cultivator. This constable, in the process of capturing a soaring dragon realm suspect, actually died together with the suspect. Jiang Wang was silent for a moment before he said, It's very strange. Only then did he realize. The year 3920 of the Tao calendar was the 38th year of the Yuanfeng era. Li Fengyao was not discussing the cultivation of the outer building realm. He was providing him with clues about the case from back then. All right, after strolling around for so long, we can report back to our superiors. Li Fengyao gave a rare smile. Such a peerless, icy beauty, with just a gentle smile, seemed to melt the winter cold. Even the winter moon was bright because of it. Even though Jiang Wang's mind had been swept up in the raging fury of the case, he was still dazed by this gentle smile. Let's go back, she said. Oh, okay, Jiang Wang replied obediently. Then I won't send you off. Li Fengyao stopped in his tracks. Grandmother likes you very much. Come visit her more often. Okay, Jiang Wang said softly, Sister Fengyao. Then he turned around and walked away on the flower path, leaving the deep courtyard of the city destroyer manor. Speaking of which, his relationship with the Li family of Sherman started with Li Longchuan. When they first met in the Heaven's secret territory, Jiang Wang's attitude toward the Li family of Sherman was actually very cautious. It was mainly because of that line in the poem, the whole world praises Sherman Li, but who knows Fengxian Zhang? They were both top-notch noble families, descendants of heroes who helped restore the country. Why was the Li family of Sherman able to stand tall, but the Zhang family of Fengxian had fallen to such a state? While he felt sorry for the Zhang family of Fengxian, he couldn't help but examine the Li family of Sherman more. Later, he represented Cheng Gongsheng to send the Qiushan Bao to Li Longchuan, and with Su Xianqian's help, the two sides were officially connected. What kind of noble family was the Li family of Sherman? Their ancestors enjoyed the glory of restoring the country, and their ancestral shrine was set up in the National Guardian Hall at the forefront. For so many years, they had produced many famous generals, and their talents had never died out. They had always stood among the top noble families of the Qi. Jiang Wang was a country bumpkin from a remote small country, but he had never felt arrogance in his interactions with such a noble family. Whether it was Li Longchuan, old Madame Li, Li Fengyao, from the beginning until now, he had only felt respect. It was like this now, and it was like this when he was far from being famous. So why was the Li family of Sherman able to enjoy glory for so long? Perhaps this was the reason. Sitting in the carriage returning home, Jiang Wang silently pondered. A noble family at the level of the Li family of Sherman could naturally ignore many rules. However, as a member of the blue metal system, Jiang Wang had to be careful when he participated in the important cases investigated by the Blue Metal System. Li Fengyao wouldn't mention the year 3920 of the Taoist calendar for no reason, and he wouldn't mention Gu Xing for no reason. To put it bluntly, how could a mere outer-building figure be worth the Li family of Shimon's attention? Only Gu Xing's whereabouts were worth pondering. Tyrannical Horn Island was an island controlled by the Tian family overseas. Gu Xing was fired from Zhufeng and chose to go out to sea. Was it related to the Tian family? And what role did the green badge arrester named Du Feng, whom Li Fengyao had specially mentioned, play in the big case that year? He was at the outer tower and had died together with the suspect of the Soaring Dragon realm. Li Fengyao wouldn't mention this person for no reason. Every additional clue brought him closer to the truth. Jiang Wang had a premonition that he was close to the truth. While he was thinking, the curtains suddenly moved and a figure flashed in. Although Jiang Wang was shocked, he didn't panic. He opened his hand, and his Dao energy surged. His left eye had already turned crimson red. All of this happened in an instant and disappeared in an instant. His 5 outstretched fingers had already pressed against the door. They hovered for a moment and then retracted. "Almost killed you," he said with a frown. Lin Yuxi sat down in the carriage. Her hair was still tied up with a green scarf, and she was dressed in men's clothing. Her expression didn't change as she said, "If you can't even control this, then you don't deserve the title of the #1 Tianjiao and Qi, unless you really want to kill me." To be able to get close to him with a cultivation far lower than his. She was indeed Lin Kuang's daughter. She must have a lot of secret techniques like Nianxin, master. The coachman said from outside the curtain. "I'm fine," Jiang Wang replied. Jiang Wang casually stopped the sound in the carriage. He said with a headache, "If you want to visit me openly, you can come with a name card. If you want to visit me secretly, why did you get into my carriage on the street? Because if I come with a name card, I have to ask your butler to ask about your background. I also have to consider your mood and whether you are willing to meet guests," Lin Yuxi said matter-of-factly. Jiang Wang was speechless. Moreover, Lin Yuxi said, "As long as you are calm enough, it is actually more covert during the day than at night. Suddenly getting into your carriage on the street is much more covert than knocking on your back door in the middle of the night." Looking at Jiang Wang's complicated eyes, she concluded, "It's just a little knowledge of handling cases. I hope it can help you. You came here today to teach me?" Jiang Wang asked faintly. Lin Yuxi was silent for a while and said, "I already know who the murderer is." Jiang Wang's expression became serious. "The murderer of Imperial Concubine Lei's case? In fact, Feng Gu has left a lot of clues," Lin Yuxi said, "right in front of us. For example, Feng Gu was hanged in the morning hall, facing the northeast corner when he died. On the first day of the 11th prince's funeral, who stood in the morning hall. Do you still remember?" Jiang Wang thought for a while and said seriously, "At first it was Palace Master Huaying, then it was Her Highness the Empress. This is the first clue Feng Gu gave, facing the Empress." Lin Yuxi said, "This is a clue for those who were also present at that time, of course, including you, Lord Jiang. This is too far-fetched." Jiang Wang shook his head and said, "The funeral lasted for 3 days. I don't know how many people entered the morning hall to pay their respects. But there are not many people who can stand in that direction, almost no one else. How can the direction of the deceased be used as a clue? Feng Gu committed suicide. This was a carefully planned suicide. Every detail was the result of his careful consideration. Generally, when someone hangs himself, he will either face the door or the direction he wants to see. Feng Gu is obviously the latter." As a person who also appeared on the first day of the funeral, Jiang Wang had already faintly believed it in his heart, because he had also been thinking about what clues Feng Gu had left for him. But he still said, "This is not convincing." "So there is a second clue," Lin Yuxi asked. "Do you still remember the bowl of medicinal soup of the 11th prince?" Jiang Wang looked at her. Lin Yuxi said, "I have already told you the ingredients in that bowl of medicinal soup. In addition to me, there were other pharmacists in Baya who had examined it, and the ingredients were exactly the same. But I didn't say the time." "Time? There is a new medicine. It was added after the bowl of medicinal soup had cooled for at least 1 to 2 days. I can't think of anyone else who would do this except Fenggu. This medicine is the red-bellied spider's foot. Jiang Wang was silent. Usually, he would only pretend to know in front of Chongxin Fat, but he really didn't know much about the red-bellied spider's foot. If there was something wrong with this medicine, why didn't Zheng Shi have any reaction when he heard the ingredients of the medicinal soup that day? It is also a medicine to resist cold poison. It is not special to put it in this bowl of medicinal soup. But the red-bellied spider itself is very special. Lin Yuxi continued. It has another name, child-eating spider. This spider produces children and eats them. It hatches 10 spiders at a time, eating 9 and leaving 1. Why did Fenggu deliberately add this medicine? The 11th prince is no longer here. This bowl of medicine is not for people to drink, but for people to see. For who to see? Maybe me, maybe you. The 11th prince's birth mother is already dead. Who this child-eating spider refers to? I think it is already self-evident. Jiang Wang was shocked. If Fenggu really wanted to hint at something, then these hints added together were indeed enough. Then, the murderer of imperial concubine Lei's assassination in the 38th year of the Yuanfeng era was actually the current empress? If the person behind the scenes was really the empress, then it was completely understandable that this case was so tightly suppressed. If it was the shadow cast by the current empress, as the chief eunuch of the Longevity Palace, Fenggu could only use his death to influence the case. But Jiang Wang quickly recovered from his shock and said calmly, "But these can only show Fenggu's hatred at most. He can think that the current empress is the murderer of imperial concubine Lei, but his suspicion is not evidence." Jiang Wang's meaning was very simple. These were far from enough to open the case of imperial concubine Lei's assassination. To put it bluntly, Fenggu was just a dog of the Longevity Palace. Compared to the empress, what was he? His bite was neither painful nor itchy. His suspicion was insignificant. Not only Fenggu. What was the difference between his suspicion of Jiang Qingyang and Lin Yuxi and Fenggu? Only solid evidence could shake the empress's authority. Or else, if they rashly opened their mouths to doubt, they would only die. He hoped that Lin Yuxi bumped into the carriage today and talked about this matter with evidence. But Lin Yuxi shook her head. How can there be evidence? Her voice was extremely bitter. So many years have passed. How can the person who did such a big case keep the evidence until now? Time never kept anything for anyone. Therefore, in the past 17 years, there was a heavy sense of despair. Chapter 1392. Didn't Fenggu leave anything else? Jiang Wang asked Lin Yuxi. Of course there are some other clues, but they are all deliberately set up, in order to confuse the person handling the case and the person behind the scenes. His clues are for me to see. He knows that I can see through the fog. Lin Yuxi said, because my father is Lin Kuang. With all due respect, Jiang Wang said calmly, if there is no solid evidence, no matter what you do, it will be meaningless. Our analysis here can only be analysis. Lin Yuxi said, I can't prove who the murderer of imperial concubine Lei is, but I only need to prove that my father's death is related to the current empress. This is the reason why Fenggu wanted me to participate in this case. Lin Kuang died because of the investigation of imperial concubine Lei's assassination. If it could be proved that his death was not a suicide and was related to the empress, it could indeed be regarded as an important piece of evidence that could link the current empress and imperial concubine Lei's death together. How are you going to prove it? Jiang Wang asked. This is my business, Lin Yuxi said. Jiang Wang thought that Lin Yuxi had come to ask for help today and was even prepared to help. He didn't expect that she was not. It was as if she jumped into the carriage halfway just to tell Jiang Wang the truth she believed. Why are you telling me this? Jiang Wang asked. Lin Yuxi paused and said, my father is the most outstanding person since the establishment of the blue medal. He solved countless cases in his life and was loyal to his duty. He would not commit suicide, nor should he commit suicide. I hope that if something happens to me, there will still be people who remember these things. I hope nothing happens to you. Jiang Wang said slowly, because other than you, no one will remember him for so long. Lin Yuxi's eyes, which seemed to be able to see through everything, lowered slightly, and her gaze fell on the corner of her clothes. When we were in the offshore islands, you told me that you were going to save someone at the sea ceremony. I thought you must be lying to me, and you used such a ridiculous and unrealistic reason to lie to me. But the strange thing was, I still believed you. Later I thought, how did you do it? I couldn't think of it, but I saw it. I saw you go to the Tianya stage and stop the sea sacrificial ceremony. I heard that you went to the bewildering world and completed an almost impossible mission to cleanse your sins. The second time you went to the Tianya stage, you killed Ji Shaoqing and suppressed the fishing ocean tower with your sword. No one in the same realm dared to challenge you. At that time, your name was spread throughout the entire offshore archipelago. You return as a hero. Maybe you don't believe me, but you inspire me. I'm not as strong as you, but my heart is as determined as yours. Jiang Wang said, the reason why you believed me at that time was because you were also chasing the impossible. You're also such a determined person. I've only been involved in this case for a few days, but I'm already feeling suffocating pressure. But you've been working hard for so many years under such pressure. Do you have any impulsive plans now? You think too much. Lin Yuxi said, it's just that you're the most talented person I know. I believe that one day you will be able to stand at the peak. I mean, if something happens to me, I want to solemnly ask you to reopen my father's case when you have the strength to do so. Then, she faced Jiang Wang and bowed down in the carriage. Jiang Wang put his hand on her shoulder and pushed her back to her seat. Constable Lin, how can the peak position be so easy? It's better to rely on yourself than on others. He thought for a while and finally asked, there's a person called Du Fong who came from a blue metal family. Do you know him? Lin Yuxi was startled at first. After a moment of silence, she said, the person who threw my father's body in front of me was called Du Fong. He was my father's subordinate and could be considered half of my father's disciple. His explanation at that time was that he was too emotional to accept it at the moment. She said in a flat voice, Liu Gui investigated Du Fong. Later, the conclusion of the investigation was that because of the rules of a blue metal family, my father refused to teach Du Fong many secret techniques. So Du Fong gradually developed hatred. After my father died, he wanted to destroy me. Not long after, Du Fong died in the process of investigating the case. The case was left unsettled. Liu Gui, Du Fong's death, who did it? Jiang Wang asked. In the past, I would tell you very firmly that it was either an accident or he was killed. It definitely had nothing to do with the 4 blue metal families. Because we have been taught since we were young to act within the rules and follow the law. Du Fong's death sounded strange, but the actual case was very normal. The suspect he was chasing was indeed only in the soaring dragon realm, but the one who really killed him was the suspect's father. Lin Yuxi said, but now I can't be sure. Since Liu Gui secretly joined the Pingdang state, the ancestral teachings of the 4 blue metal families naturally couldn't interfere with him. Even Lin Yuxi herself couldn't rule out the possibility that the 4 blue metal families killed him for revenge. So Lin Yuxi said that she couldn't be sure of the cause of Du Fong's death. Jiang Wang didn't say anything for a while. Lin Yuxi continued, when Liu Gui was tortured, I was at the execution ground. I shouldn't have gone, but I could not go. Liu Gui's relationship with my father was actually very bad. Grandpa Wu said that he wanted to fight with my father for everything, but he couldn't win anything. But after my father died, Grandpa Wu resigned and disappeared for a long time. It was Liu Gui who had been taking care of me. I saw him on the execution ground. Someone cut off his flesh, and it fell piece by piece. I saw his expression. I knew that he wanted to curse something like the imperial court being unfair to the 4 blue metal families. He wanted to curse, but he didn't, because there were still people alive in the 4 blue metal families, and because I was still alive, he didn't want to find trouble for me. Grandpa Wu didn't plan to take in any more disciples. I'm the only descendant left in the 4 blue metal families. Speaking of this, Lin Yuxi seemed to have finally calmed down. She looked at Jiang Wang with a penetrating gaze again. Why did you suddenly mention this person? The state of Qi had developed too quickly, and it had grown too strong too quickly. In the process, too many people had been neglected. Li Yugui didn't belong to the Pingding country from the beginning. His situation was completely different from Yin Tu's. He couldn't find an exit in the glorious history and declining current situation of the Blue Metal families. As a Blue Metal family member, he couldn't do anything about Lin Kuang's death. Lin Kuang, who was much more outstanding than him, died without any weight. What could he do? What was the future of the 4 Blue Metal families? Obviously, he was confused and lost. He made a different choice from Yuri and Lin Yuxi, but his concern for Lin Yuxi wasn't fake. People were so complicated. The more Jiang Wang saw, the more he didn't dare to judge a person lightly. He just said, Du Feng has a close friend from the same hometown called Gu Xing. He used to be the general of the Chasing Wind Army. In the 38th year of the Yuan Feng era, he was dismissed from his military post and went to sea. Now, he is the island master of Tyrannical Horn Island. Lin Yuxi's eyelids twitched. Tyrannical Horn Island belonged to the Tian clan of Days, and she suspected the Tian family from the beginning. Yuri had been investigating the Tian family in secret for so many years after he resigned. He already had a lot of clues, but he still couldn't get the core evidence. If Gu Xing, the owner of Tyrannical Horn Island, was related to Du Feng's actions back then, it was undoubtedly an important piece of evidence that tied the Tian family of Days and the assassination of Imperial concubine Lei together. I know. She looked at Jiang Wang deeply. Thank you. After that, she got up directly. Looking at her swift and decisive manner, Jiang Wang couldn't help but say, Actually, life is very long. You've waited for so many years. There's no need to rush. Lin Yuxi reached out to hold the door and said lightly, But the 11th prince can only die this time. Jiang Wuqi would only die this time, and Emperor Qi would only be sad this time. The time to thoroughly investigate the old case might not come again, because the child that was cut out from Imperial concubine Lei's belly back then was no longer there. The curtain of the carriage was lowered, and the person was gone. Only the faint smell of herbs was still describing her. Jiang Wang was speechless for a long time. If the current empress was indeed the mastermind behind the assassination of Imperial concubine Lei, the Tian family was the knife she used back then. If Du Feng's actions were really related to Gu Xing, it was under the control of the Tian family and carried out the will of the current empress. Then, throwing Lin Kuang's body in front of Lin Yuxi was not only a deterrent, but also a strong sense of venting anger. No matter what Lin Kuang did, no matter how unappreciative he was already dead. It was really narrow-minded of him to vent his anger on a 3-year-old girl. If the empress of a country was so narrow-minded, would it be a blessing for the world? If the mastermind was the empress, it could indeed explain a lot of things and connect all the existing clues. But why did the empress want to harm Imperial concubine Lei? 17 years ago, Jiang Wuqi was not even born yet, and the power of the Lei family was also mediocre. What threat could Imperial concubine Lei pose? Jiang Wang couldn't figure it out for a while. However, he already understood the choice in his heart. He was also looking for the answer. Time moved forward with difficulty. Jiang Wang cultivated hard while waiting for the news. The Shadow Guard investigation of Gong Sun used Broken Tongue. Lin Yuxi's investigation of the island master of Tyrannical Horn Island, Gu Xing. Jiang Wang wouldn't insist on doing everything himself. Professional matters should be left to professionals. Transcendent power was his foundation. So he waited, so he cultivated. However, the first one to come to the door was Zheng Xiaoming. It was the winter moon, and the wind was cold. Everyone in the Jiang mansion, from the butler to the door guards, had changed into new cotton-padded clothes. Their spirit and appearance were refreshed. In any case, they had some semblance of a noble family. Zheng Xiaoming came riding on the north wind. He was dressed in martial attire and looked very neat. The majesty in his temperament was also more obvious. After operating in the northern government for so long, he was gradually taking over the authority of the Zheng family. Any new commandant of the northern government who was not recognized by the father and son would find it difficult to get rid of their influence in the northern government. However, at the same time, Jiang Wang had no doubt that if he took over the commandant of the northern government, he would work very happily with him. Because the current Zheng Shangming was already a qualified successor, a sufficiently clear-headed person. He understood what should be done and what should not be done. The Zheng family was also a person who knew when to stop and when to stop. He would definitely be able to make things more comfortable for all parties. However, sometimes he would inexplicably feel that it was a pity that the original Zheng Shangming would never be able to see him again. The memories of the past were like the north wind blowing in the southern tower. Jiang Wang stood alone in the courtyard in a green robe. A flame flower was born and extinguished at the tip of his finger. The detailed text of the flame flower incineration flowed slowly in his heart. In terms of the flame flower alone, Jiang Wang had not seen many fire element Dao techniques that were on par with Zhuo Guanglie's original creation. As the foundation of the flame flower incineration, it could also be said to have constructed the system of Zhuo Guanglie's fire element Dao techniques. In terms of this technique, Jiang Wang had already bloomed his own flower and infused it with a unique vitality. Therefore, his flame flower incineration would definitely be different from Zhuo Guanglie's. Zheng Shangming stepped into the courtyard and saw the endless flame flower. The most intuitive feeling was beauty, and then he sighed in admiration of its vitality. Your flame flower should have surpassed Zhuo Guanglie's, right? He could not help but ask. The flame flower at the tip of his finger returned to a spark and returned to the tip of his finger. It did not waste any Dao energy. Just at this level, there is a limit. We are all at that position, so there is no need to talk about surpassing. If we talk about more advanced applications, we are still far from it. Jiang Wang looked at Zheng Shangming. It seems that regarding this case, you are 100% confident. Only 80%. Zheng Shangming said, there is still a key piece of evidence missing. Then I have to congratulate you. Jiang Wang said. Zheng Shangming asked, shouldn't I be the one congratulating you? Jiang Wang was in the courtyard. He extended his hand and invited him to sit. I have always felt that perhaps Lin Yuxi found out the truth first. We could have kept Lin Yuxi out of the case. It's just that. Zheng Shangming sat down and said in an indifferent voice, although the 4 great blue tile clans have vanished, they were still the cornerstones of the earliest establishment of the blue tile system. Their remaining influence cannot be underestimated. Even the emperor feels that he should give them an explanation. Bea is even more so. Your so-called explanation is to let her participate in the case that she should have participated in. Jiang Wang sat opposite him and asked softly. There was a small stove on the stone table. A pot of tea was boiling on the stove. At this time, steam was rising in spirals. It is hard for you not to admit it. If Bea does not agree, she will not even have the chance to find out the truth. Zheng Shangming's words were cold, but they were indeed heavy facts. Are you so sure that you will find out the truth before she does? Jiang Wang said. Lin Yuxi is already prepared to die. How dare you look down on someone who is prepared to die? That is her choice. Zheng Shangming said calmly and looked at Jiang Wang. Brother Jiang, I just want to know your choice. It should be said that since Zheng Shangming took the initiative to show his goodwill in the capital, he and Jiang Wang have been getting along well. They could even be called friends. On the contrary, Jiang Wang and Lin Yuxi had many disagreements before. Lin Yuxi had been holding on to Jiang Wang from the beginning. Because of the suspicions of the no door to hell, he could not wait to find evidence to nail Jiang Wang in the heavenly prison. For a long time, Jiang Wang kept a respectful distance from Lin Yuxi. But at this moment, Jiang Wang could only say, Brother Zheng, I can't take the position of Bea Commandant. Zheng Shangming did not seem to be very surprised. After all, Jiang Wang had been hesitating on this issue for too long. But he still asked why. Jiang Wang looked up at the clouds in the sky and asked with some emotion, Brother Shangming, what do you think the position of Bea Commandant and Chief Inspector of the Capital Inspection Office represents? Is it power or responsibility? Zheng Shangming did not think much and answer directly. It represents the great power to control the blue metal system. As for power and responsibility are one. Once you control the blue metal, you have to bear the responsibility of the blue metal. Jiang Wang asked again, then what is the responsibility of the blue metal? The words Bea Commandant. Is the important thing Bea Commandant or Commandant? I think I understand what you mean. Zheng Xiangming said slowly. You have to choose the so-called truth. But Brother Jiang, have you ever thought, eat the emperor's salary and be loyal to the emperor? The capital inspection office is directly under the emperor, not your Qingyang town's fief. The position of Bea Commandant. The important thing is not the Bea Commandant, nor is it the Commandant, but the words that are not written. Jiang Wang let out a long breath and said calmly, so I can't sit in this position. Zheng Xiangming looked at him. Brother Jiang, I have always admired you, and I know that you are a strong-willed person. But today I want to sincerely advise you. The emperor's trust in you is known by the whole world. Have you ever thought that if you refuse this position, you will disappoint the emperor? You refuse not only the position of Bea Commandant, but also the opportunity to express your loyalty to the emperor. Do you know that your future career may very well be difficult because of the choice you made today? Of course, Jiang Wang knew. Even if he did not know, Cheng Gengsheng had already told him. But he just said calmly, Qi is very big, and it should be able to accommodate all kinds of people. If not, I don't think it will be my loss. Zheng Xiangming was silent for a moment and said, although I don't agree with it, I respect your choice. He heaved a long sigh. Brother Jiang, sometimes I feel that you're really a very enviable person. What do I have to be envious of? Jiang Wang chuckled. I'm alone in the world, and I only have pride. Speaking of which, I am a third-rank official. How many people will listen to me? People will always envy those who can't be like them. Zheng Xiangming pursed his lips. Then, Brother Jiang, I will leave first. He got up and walked out. When he was about to walk to the gate of the courtyard, he heard Jiang Wang's voice behind him. Brother Zheng, speaking of which, when you were being manipulated by Wen Lianmu, if I accidentally killed you in the horse-rushing mountain, it would arouse the anger of your father, the Bea Commandant. Have you ever thought that you need the truth? Zheng Xiangming stopped. I have thought about it, and I have thought about it very seriously. He said, what I think is that I need power. He just stood at the gate of the courtyard, with his back facing Jiang Wang. He said calmly, Brother Jiang, not everyone can be like you, a genius who can break the legend, and the courage to break the rules. I am just a mediocre person working hard. Chapter 1393. Zheng Xiangming walked away. There was something he didn't say in his heart. However, even Jiang Wang's legend was only at the inner mansion level. After the outer mansion was Shunlin, after Shunlin was Dongjin, and after Dongjin was Daoist. This world was too vast. Great power was too great. Could you really change some things? Zheng Xiangming, who was once determined not to rely on his father's halo, hid his identity, and stubbornly fought alone, had his pride crushed by Wang Yiwu's fist in front of the marshal's office in Wen Lianmu's game. After that, he resolutely joined the blue metal system and adapted to Bea as quickly as possible. Today, he and Jiang Wang had different choices, but he didn't make the choice today. It was hard to say whether this was growth and transformation or compromise and fall. Everyone lived in their own moral system. All the struggles, beliefs, excuses were just for the sake of justifying one's choice. Sometimes a person can change in a single night, but there were always people who were unwilling to change. Perhaps Buddhism said that a world was born and destroyed when flowers bloomed and withered. Who could be sure that he wasn't a flower person? Jiang Wang sat quietly in front of the stone table in the courtyard and raised a finger. In the north wind, he watched the flame flower bloom and wither, comprehending the mystery of Taoist techniques. Perhaps today wasn't a suitable day for cultivation. Not long after, Butler Xie came to report that a guest had come. It was a name card, beautifully made. The guest was Yang Jing of Biwu County. Jiang Wang shook out the flame flower and frowned slightly. Zheng Xiangming's visit was expected, but Yang Jing's was unexpected. Unexpected things always made him lose some sense of security. Even so, he still got up and walked out to personally welcome the guest. No matter what, last time he came without an invitation was indeed abrupt. The other party gave him face and didn't argue with him. There was no reason for him to start putting on airs when the other party came to visit. He still couldn't put on that kind of airs. He, Lord Jiang, was usually arrogant only among his friends. He could only occasionally make bad friends like Cheng Gongsheng and Su Xiangqian angry. Yang Jing was dressed in black today, looking solemn. He didn't bring any attendants with him, standing alone outside the door. Even though he had put away his bow and sword, the sharpness of his aura was still undiminished. Jiang Wang took a few steps forward to welcome him. "I didn't know you were visiting. Please excuse me for not going out to meet you." "You're too polite, Lord Zhu." Yang Jing looked at him. "How about we talk inside?" Jiang Wang immediately turned sideways. "Come to my courtyard." Fortunately, Cheng Gongsheng was not here today. Otherwise, he might have come to stir things up. The fact that his shadow guards were beaten up in Biwu County made him very unhappy. The two of them entered the courtyard one after the other. Yang Jing didn't bother to exchange pleasantries and directly said, "Gong Sun Yu is dead." Jiang Wang was stunned. "How did he die?" "I don't know," Yang Jing said. "That's why I came to Linzi." "How big was Linzi?" "There were so many high officials and nobles." Yang Jing's tone was calm, but there was a sense of solitary courage in his words. "It seemed that he and Gong Sun Yu were really good friends." Jiang Wang said seriously, "It has absolutely nothing to do with me. I guarantee that I didn't know anything about his death." Yang Jing said, "Otherwise, I wouldn't have come to your residence alone." It seemed that he had already investigated in private. Jiang Wang thought for a moment, then asked, "When did he die?" Yang Jing said, "After you left, I went to accompany him for a while. At that time, he was still in good condition, reading a book. The next morning, I arranged a new place for him to live in seclusion. When I went to pick him up, he was already gone. There were no external injuries. Tongtian Palace and 5 residences were shattered. He died." "What did your brother say?" Jiang Wang asked. Yang Luo, the county governor of Biwu County, was undoubtedly a very influential figure. If he could borrow his power, Yang Jing said calmly, "Gong Sun Yu was my friend, not my brother's friend. It was a slip of the tongue." Jiang Wang admitted his mistake. But in fact, it wasn't hard to guess the murderer of Gong Sun Yu's death. There were only a few groups of people who would kill Gong Sun Yu at this time. Those who wanted to investigate the truth, and those who wanted to cover up the truth. Since Jiang Wang didn't do it himself, then only Lin Yuxi's people, Zheng Xiangming's people, and the real murderer of imperial concubine Lei's assassination were left. "I've asked someone to investigate. The case you've been supervising recently is the death of Feng Guji, the chief eunuch of the Longevity Palace." Yang Jing asked directly, "I want to ask you, what does this case have to do with Gong Sun Yu? Why did you go to Biwu County to look for him?" Without knowing the details of the case, his question went straight to the point. Because the murderer probably went to Biwu County for the same reason as Jiang Wang. Gong Sun Yu was the confidant of the 11th prince when he was alive and a frequent visitor of the Longevity Palace. "I went to Biwu County to ask him some questions about the Longevity Palace." Jiang Wang said seriously, "It's not convenient for me to tell you the details of the case. But if you can provide me with some clues, maybe I can find the real murderer faster." Yang Jing didn't comment on this and asked, "With your current status, power, and responsibility, why did you have to go to Biwu County secretly to investigate the case? I'm afraid this case isn't as simple as Feng Guji's death. Who are you enemies with? Is there someone secretly watching you? Is it possible that the murderer found Gong Sun Yu by following you?" Jiang Wang was glad that Cheng Sheng wasn't there at first, but now he hoped that the fat man was there. Yang Jing was really not a simple person. Many people said that he was just a fledgling under the wing of his brother, Yang Luo. But after meeting him personally, Jiang Wang found that this person was brave and resourceful. He could take care of the friendship between him and Gong Sun Yu, and he could avoid responsibility as much as possible so that it wouldn't affect his position as the county chief's brother. He could also get close to the core of the problem with keen eyes, speaking of which, he deliberately left his brother out. Was it because he smelled the danger of this case? After thinking carefully for a while, Jiang Wang said, "I can't talk about the details of the case. This is the rule of the blue metal. As for the possibility you mentioned, I can't rule it out. Brother Yang, don't worry. I'll give you an explanation for Gong Sun Yu's death. Gong Sun Yu is my friend. He died in my manor." Yang Jing said calmly, "I came to Linzi to give myself an explanation. Then you should cooperate with me." Jiang Wang said sincerely, "The murderer killed Gong Sun Yu because he knew something. I was in charge of supervising the handling of the Longevity Palace case. I have people everywhere in the Northern Yamen and the Imperial Court. Cheng Gung Sheng lived in my manor. The Li family of Shermin and I were close family friends. Yin Fu was my best friend. Zheng Xiangming and I were close friends. No matter who the murderer was or what power he was involved in, I'll definitely investigate and find out the truth." Jiang Wang kept talking nonsense here, and it was unknown which sentence had touched Yang Jing's heart. After a moment of silence, he finally said, "But Gong Sun, you didn't tell me anything. Just tell me what you know." Jiang Wang said hurriedly, "Where do you want to start from?" Jiang Wang thought for a while and asked, "When was his tongue cut off?" "Last year on New Year's Eve, Gong Sun, you came to find me." Yang Jing said slowly, "At that time, his tongue was already cut off. The New Year's Eve of the year 3918 of the Taoist calendar was the date of the war of the kingdom of Zhuangyong. He had put in all his effort to come here without rest. Today, he suddenly realized that so many things had happened in this year. Of course, Jiang Wang couldn't forget that rainy night. Never. But it was clear that on that same New Year's Eve, the story that changed Gong Sun Yu's life had also happened. What happened in the Longevity Palace on New Year's Eve of the 3918th year of the Tao calendar? How was it cut off?" Jiang Wang asked. "That's what I asked him at the time." Yang Jing looked at the texture on the stone table and fell into memory. "It was snowing that night. A lot of snow. I drank too much and went back to my room alone. He was waiting for me in my courtyard. I was very happy. What could be happier than a good friend coming to see you on a snowy night? I asked him if he wanted a drink. I said I hunted a very fat deer. I said a few days ago, a guy came to the city to fish for fame. He had a sharp tongue. You could come and scold him, but he only opened his mouth and showed me his broken tongue. What happened? I asked him what happened. He didn't react at all. I was very anxious, very angry. I said I was going to kill someone. I had to kill a few people. I felt like my heart was on fire. The courtyard was covered with snow. He squatted down and wrote a line in the snow. I have a sharp tongue all my life. I was afraid it would be difficult to avoid speaking, so I cut off my tongue to show my sincerity. I will never speak again in this life. That line of words was quickly covered by the snow, and he really didn't communicate with me again. Yang Jing said with slight sadness. I asked him many times, but he only looked at me every time. I don't know what happened to him. I think he didn't want me to know. That was to say, Gong Sun Yu cut off his own tongue, and the reason was to avoid speaking. Why did he want to avoid speaking? Did he know something he shouldn't know? And this was the reason he left the Longevity Palace? Could it be related to the truth of the assassination of Imperial concubine Lei? Did he contact the Longevity Palace later? Jiang Wang asked. As far as I know, no. Yang Jing said. He never left the manor. Jiang Wang said seriously. I think Gong Sun Yu didn't tell you anything. Maybe it was to protect you. Maybe. But protecting him is what I want to do the most as a friend. Saying this, Yang Jing stood up and said, Since it's not convenient for you to tell me anything, then let's part ways here. Jiang Wang asked subconsciously, Where are you going? I've told you everything I know. Yang Jing looked at him. Next, I'll find the answer in my own way. You'll die. This thought came to Jiang Wang's mind almost immediately. He said very seriously, Naturally, we, the blue metal, will handle the case. The information you have and the information we have are not on the same level at all. Rashly joining in will not help. Why don't you go back to the Biwu County and wait for news? I'll inform you as soon as there's a result. The real murderer of imperial concubine Lei's assassination, even if it didn't belong to the current empress, was bound to be a force on the same level as the current empress. It was fine if Yang Jing couldn't track down Gong Sun Yu's murderer, but if he really did, his end would probably be very ugly. Not to mention anything else, just based on Yang Jing's loyalty to his friends, Jiang Wang didn't want to watch him die. It seems that I guessed right. The murderer belongs to a very powerful force that my Yang family can't afford to offend. Yang Jing's mouth twitched, as if he was mocking him. That's true. Otherwise, why would he dare to kill my friend so casually? Please believe me, Jiang Wang couldn't say much after all, so he could only emphasize, I won't give up on this case, and I've already touched on the truth. I know you're very trustworthy, but I'm sorry, I can't pin my friend's death entirely on a stranger. Yang Jing turned and left without hesitation. He came suddenly and left decisively. This was a smart and clear-headed person. He came to Lindsay alone, so perhaps he was already prepared. In the courtyard where the cold wind fell, Jiang Wang was left alone again. He sat alone on the stone chair, silently thinking about the case. This case couldn't be delayed any longer. But where was the key evidence? Would Lin Yuxi have any results? Jiang Wuqi, Feng Gu, Gong Sun Yu died one after another. If Yang Jing bumped into the power behind the scenes, it would be very dangerous. Who would be next? Would Lin Yuxi be absolutely safe? What about himself? The important case from 17 years ago was like an infinitely deep dark whirlpool, constantly expanding and trying to involve more and more people from all aspects. They needed to produce a result as soon as possible. They could either tear open the curtain that covered it and let the sun shine in, illuminating every corner. Or they could completely bury it and never mention it again. Obviously, Gong Sun Yu chose the latter. No, thinking of Gong Sun Yu at this moment, Jiang Wang vaguely felt that he seemed to have touched on something. He seemed to have overlooked something very important all this time. What was it? Jiang Wang frowned, stood up, and paced back and forth in the courtyard. What had he overlooked? The cold wind was noisy, so he simply walked into the room and closed the door. He isolated all the sound so that he could think in silence. What had he overlooked? He paced back and forth in the bedroom alone. Suddenly, he paused and saw a piece of writing hanging on the wall. It was the last piece of writing written by Jiang Wuqi, which he had specially asked a craftsman to frame. The heavens did not abandon to Qi and gave birth to Jiang Wuqi. Jiang Wang's mind exploded with inspiration. Yes, Jiang Wuqi. He understood what the problem he had been neglecting was. Since Feng Gu used his death to start the investigation of the big case back then, and clearly left clues that pointed to Daki empresses. And now, it seemed that Gong Sun Yu also knew something. In other words, Feng Gu and Gong Sun Yu both had some information about the truth of the assassination of noble consort Lei. Then, as the palace master of Longevity Palace, how could Jiang Wuqi not know anything? How could such a top figure be completely kept in the dark by his subordinates? This didn't make sense. But since Jiang Wuqi also knew the truth, why didn't he deal with this matter himself? With his wisdom, status, and influence, anything he did would be more useful than Feng Gu. But he didn't mention it until he died. Why? Chapter 1394. The last thing Jiang Wuqi did when he was alive was to use himself as bait to wipe out all the spies of the Pingping state in the Qi dynasty. Liu Guwei of the Shunlin realm and Yin Tu of the Dongzhen realm were all eliminated. With such wisdom and courage, what kind of enemy couldn't he deal with? Why didn't he take revenge for his mother's death? Why didn't he take revenge for the cold poison? Why did he let Gong Sun Yu leave on New Year's Eve last year? And the contradiction was Jiang Wuqi didn't mention it, and Gong Sun Yu cut her tongue to stop talking. Why did Feng Gu use his death to force the truth of that year? Jiang Wang thought hard. He vaguely felt that he was very close to a clue, but it was like looking at flowers in the fog. There was always a layer of something. What was it? Jiang Wuqi, Feng Gu, Gong Sun Yu, Yang Jing, Gong Sun Yu cut her tongue. She couldn't speak, so she was mute. The door that had been blocked in his mind for a long time suddenly opened. Among those chaotic clues, one suddenly became clear and jumped out in front of him. Jiang Wang turned around and went out. He immediately asked the butler to prepare a carriage and rushed directly to the Longevity Palace. He wished he could fly there directly, but in a place like Lindsay, and at such a delicate time, he had to follow the rules. His heart was already racing like a galloping horse. In the smooth carriage, Jiang Wang's expression was still calm. The more anxious he was, the more he wanted to be calm. He could be calm and self-disciplined without losing his mind. He even abandoned all distracting thoughts and began to cultivate. In the practice of Tao techniques, time always passed calmly. The Longevity Palace wasn't far, and it didn't take long to arrive. Jiang Wang felt that he had calmed down and lifted the curtain to get out of the carriage. He walked straight into the Longevity Palace. "Sir, according to the rules, someone has to accompany you before you can enter." The leader of the Blue Metal Constables stopped him. The Blue Metal Constables guarding outside the Longevity Palace had been changed. Of course, all the Blue Metal Constables in Lindsay knew Jiang Wang. Even if they hadn't seen him in person, they should have seen his portrait. Although it was their duty, they were respectful. "Then come in with me," Jiang Wang said directly. The head constable shook his head. "None of us are qualified to enter the Longevity Palace." Jiang Wang, whose mind was preoccupied with the clues, suddenly remembered that the Chongqing Palace was the scene of the crime. During the lockdown period, only he, Lin Yuxi, and Zheng Xiangming, the three blue metal people in charge of the case, were allowed to enter. Furthermore, they couldn't enter alone. There had to be at least two people supervising each other. Of course, he was fully capable of sneaking into the Longevity Palace without being discovered by the constables. However, there was no need to break the rules at such a time. Sometimes the shortcut that was right in front of your eyes was actually the long road that was incomparably tortuous. If he were to sneak into the Longevity Palace, no matter what evidence he obtained, it would no longer be credible. "Go get Zheng Xiaoming," Jiang Wang directly ordered. "Tell him that I asked him to accompany me in the search." If Zheng Xiaoming was not around, Vice Diplomat Lin Yuxi would be fine too. In short, invite whoever you see first. "I'll wait here." With his current status, there were few people in the blue metal system who didn't respect him. Moreover, there were faint rumors that he was going to take over the position of commandant of the Northern Yamen. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, a blue metal constable hurried off to the Northern Yamen to invite Lin Yuxi. Jiang Wang stood outside the palace gates. Not long after, his spirit sank into the sea and he began to cultivate. Although there wasn't much time, it was a waste of time to wait. There was always some improvement in cultivation. A small step could lead to 1,000 miles. A small stream could become a river. The peak of the transcendent was also climbed step by step from the foot of the mountain. When Zheng Xiaoming hurried over, Jiang Wang just happened to open his eyes. "What's wrong?" Zheng Xiaoming asked. Jiang Wang only said, "Let's talk inside." Of the three people in charge of this case, two were present at the same time. The palace gates of the Longevity Palace opened. The palace became even more silent and cold. There was no trace of human life left. Jiang Wang's goal was clear. He walked straight to the screen wall with the painting of all living beings. "Did you discover anything new?" Zheng Xiaoming asked again. Jiang Wang stood in front of the screen wall and carefully looked at the mural left behind by Jiang Wuqi. He didn't say a word. Zheng Xiaoming also fell silent. There were too many people in this all living beings painting, and the scenes were too complicated. It almost included all of Jiang Wuqi's observations of people. Anyone who looked at it carefully could tell that it was extraordinary. But if there were any clues hidden in it, it would be too complicated. One had to have the key to get it. Jiang Wang had always wondered if he had missed any clues. He had repeatedly studied this mural before. But today, when he thought of Gong Sun Yu's broken tongue, he suddenly connected the dots. In this picture of all living beings, not to mention the healthy ones, there were also blind people talking to deaf people pointing fingers at the blind people, and people without smell fishing by the river. It could be said to be depicting all living beings. But as the saying goes, deaf, blind, mute for missing, Jiang Wuqi's all living beings painting included deaf, blind, and mute people. So how could he have missed a mute? The answer was actually very simple. The mute person's position was Jiang Wuqi's mute. It was his unspoken words. And the mute person's position was also very easy to find. Jiang Wuqi didn't deliberately hide it too deeply. This all living beings painting was divided into 9 palaces. The deaf and blind people were at the bottom left corner of the painting, located in Jin Palace. The person with the ulcer was at Dui Palace in the middle right. A small river flowed from Dui Palace to Qian Palace. On the riverbank, farmers were carrying dung, and the person with the ulcer was fishing with a pole. Based on the positions of the deaf and blind on the entire painting, the position of the abscess should correspond to the position of the Li Palace, which was also the middle position of the upper layer of the painting. And in this place, the painting was a barren mountain. The continuous mountain range extended out of the painting. Using the specific position of the person with the ulcer as a reference, the accurate corresponding position was on top of the barren mountain, a lonely grave. This was an inconspicuous, lonely grave. Of course, Jiang Wang had seen it before, but he had only glanced over it in a hurry. Now that he had locked onto this position and examined it carefully, he noticed that there was a tombstone in front of the grave. There were only 4 words engraved on the tombstone. It was different from the format of any epitaph. These 4 words were what Jiang Wuqi wanted to say. The words engraved were, "The dead are gone." Jiang Wang was stunned for a moment. In his analysis, Gongsun Yu cut off her tongue to cut off the truth of that year, and also to hint at the answer left by Jiang Wuqi on the wall. The person's voice itself was a key. Therefore, Jiang Wang naturally thought that Jiang Wuqi had hidden the truth of that important case here. But Jiang Wuqi had only left his choice here. This was the tomb of noble consort Lei, and the words, "The dead are gone," on the tombstone were Jiang Wuqi's choice. It was also his dissuasion to those who pursued the truth here. The mute that was not drawn was Jiang Wuqi himself. He had depicted all living beings in a painting and told too many stories. When it was his turn, he only said, "Forget it." Jiang Wang did not know what to say. The assassination that year had led to the death of noble consort Lei, and Jiang Wuqi had been born with cold poison. Of course, it had also led to the death of the famous arrestor Lin Kuang and Lin Yuxi's panic disorder. The huge whirlpool created by it was still involved in human lives 17 years later. He had given up the position of the commandant of the Northern Yamen and chose the word truth because he wanted to thank Jiang Wuqi for his kindness and help him find the truth. But Jiang Wuqi had already found the truth of the case. The 11th prince had chosen to remain silent. This could also explain why Gongsun Yu left the Longevity Palace and why he told Yang Jing to refrain from speaking. Presumably, Gongsun Yu was one of the important members of the investigation at that time. After learning the truth, Jiang Wuqi chose to remain silent and asked everyone to keep it secret. Gongsun Yu was worried that he could not keep the secret, so he cut his own tongue and retired to Biwu County at a young age. What kind of truth needed to be like this? The truth, what was it? In addition, Jiang Wang also clarified another key question. Feng Gu's suicide to investigate the old case was indeed not Jiang Wuqi's decision. It was more of Feng Gu's own decision. Feng Gu was indeed loyal to Jiang Wuqi, but as a living person, he also had his own independent will. He said that Jiang Wuqi had already gotten what he wanted, which was not false. He said that he had not gotten what he wanted, which was also true. Jiang Wuqi chose to remain silent, and he wanted Jiang Ming. Why did he make a different choice from Jiang Wuqi? Perhaps no one would know the answer to this question after his death. Perhaps he was still brooding over the death of noble consort Lei, or perhaps he had given up after Jiang Wuqi's death and did not want to consider the political situation anymore. Anyway, this was what happened. And what Jiang Wang needed to consider was he still going to investigate the truth now? The biggest victim of the assassination of noble consort Lei, the person who was most qualified to investigate, had already made his choice. This painting is very complicated and vivid. Zheng Xiaoming asked at this time, "Are there any clues you want in it? You've already seen it, haven't you?" Jiang Wang asked back. Zheng Xiaoming shook his head. "I don't understand." Maybe he meant that he did not understand the painting. Or maybe he did not understand Jiang Wuqi's choice. In short, he would not share the truth about the assassination of noble consort Lei with Jiang Wang after Jiang Wang refused the position of the commandant of the Northern Yamen. The reason why Jiang Wang came to the Longevity Palace today, without hiding it from Zheng Xiangming, and even took the initiative to ask Zheng Xiangming to accompany him, was that he knew that he could not hide it from him. If he came to the Longevity Palace, Zheng Xiangming would definitely follow him. So, he simply did not hide it. Have you decided who will take over the position of the commandant of the Northern Yamen? Jiang Wang asked. Zheng Xiangming gave a wry smile. How much power do you think my father has? Is this something that can be decided by a few words behind closed doors? We came to you because you can take this position, because you are Jiang Qingyang. Do you think I can take over whoever I choose? Jiang Wang did not believe that Zheng Shirui did not have a backup plan. How could a person who understood the blue metal system and was like a fish in water in Linzi bet all his treasures on one person? After all, he had refused the position of the commandant of the Northern Yamen, and his friendship with Zheng Xiangming stopped at that of an ordinary friend. Let's go. Jiang Wang turned and walked out. Don't you want to look at other places? Zheng Xiangming asked as he followed behind him. No need, Jiang Wang said. There is only one key left to unlock the truth. I thought only Cheng Gengsheng liked to play riddles. Why don't you learn from him? Zheng Xiangming's tone was relaxed. Perhaps he was certain that Jiang Wang could not get the last key, or perhaps he was closer to the truth. In short, what he was more worried about now was who would fill the power vacuum between him and his father. An ordinary person would not be able to take the position of commandant of the Northern Yamen, but those who were too powerful were usually ambitious. It was not impossible that the other party would kick him aside after he got promoted. It was not impossible that he would not be given a chance to take over. The two of them only stayed in the Longevity Palace for a short period of time, so short that the group of constables outside the palace did not even finish their second topic. It was also a long period of time, long enough for another blue metal constable to arrive outside the Longevity Palace. Lord Zheng, the latest news. Zheng Xiangming quickly stepped forward, took the urgent letter from the blue metal constable, and opened it to take a look. After a short pause, he passed the letter to Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang was very curious about the urgent news that did not need to be hidden from him. He took the letter and read it. Retired Constable Uriel's death has been confirmed. His body was found in the waters near Haimen Island and has been urgently sent back to Linzi. Uriel is dead. Uriel is dead, just like that. At this point, the once famous Southern Crow and Northern Forest of the Eastern region had become nothing. Jiang Wang was not surprised by the news of Uriel's death. Jiang Wang had a vague feeling that this day would come when he knew that Uriel was investigating the Tian family of the days alone and that Tian Huanwen had attacked Uriel. Uriel had always been on a path of no return. As he said, he had long since given up on life and death. But Jiang Wang did not expect it to come so suddenly. So many years had passed. He had weathered so many storms and waves, only to fall just as the truth was about to surface. Who went to pick up the body? Zheng Xiangming asked. The constable replied, Deputy Yang Wei went to pick it up personally. The commandant is in the Northern Yamen. Uriel had devoted most of his life to the blue metal system. He had only left the blue metal system after Lin Kuang's death. His contributions to the blue metal system and to the Northern Yamen could never be erased. Yang Wei, who held real power, went to pick up the body, and the commandant of the Northern Yamen personally went to the patrol manor to pick up the body. Strictly speaking, even if Uriel had left his post for many years and no longer had a blue medal on his waist, who could deny that he was like a totem in the blue metal system? The so-called Constable Yulong was just a junior in front of him. Today, there were too many rules in the blue metal system that were set by people of Uriel's generation. There were too many ways to handle cases that followed the old ways. Among them, Uriel and Lin Kuang, the two super constables, had the greatest influence. Uriel and Lin Kuang were both famous. Uriel was much older than Lin Kuang, and they were friends despite the difference in age. Relatively speaking, Uriel had a higher status in the blue metal system. The patrol manor had to express enough attitude towards Uriel's death. Everyone with a blue medal on their waist had to express enough respect to Uriel himself. This had nothing to do with personal feelings, but a kind of inheritance of the past. Zhang Xiangming looked at Jiang Wang and said with a complicated tone, "Let's go. We will go to the northern Yamen and wait." "Yes, we should go and wait," Jiang Wang said. However, he knew the clues about Gu Xing on Tyrannical Horn Island should be broken. In other words, he and Lin Yuxi had lost the last key to unlocking the truth. P.S. Carbuncle. Yong, the nose does not know the smell. Han Wang Chong, Luan Hung Bieto. Chapter 1395. The patrol office of the capital city was unusually quiet today, even though there were many people in front of the gate. All kinds of people stood silently at the gate of the patrol office. They all had a blue medal hanging from their waists. Jiang Wang also hung his rank 4 blue medal next to the white jade that his sister gave him. The blue medal was slightly bigger, while the white jade was slightly smaller. Stacked together, the green and white colors were distinct. Jiang Wang immediately saw Lin Yuxi, who was wearing a green headscarf. She was still wearing men's clothes, standing alone in the corner of the crowd. Some people tried to comfort her, but she was expressionless and didn't even move her eyes. More people silently kept their distance from her. The 4 blue metal families were part of the blue metal system's history that couldn't be erased. They had made indelible contributions to the establishment and development of the blue metal system, but it was gone in the end. In the entire history of the blue metal system, the contributions of the 4 blue metal families deserved the respect of all blue metal constables. But when it came to the specifics of the internal structure of the green card system, in the immediate distribution of benefits, of course there was no lack of struggle. How could Lin Yuxi easily become the deputy of the patrol office? Of course, it was because of the influence of the 4 blue metal families. Even though she didn't have much real power, she was still on the same level as Yang Wei. The collapse of the blue metal families meant that more positions were opened up and opportunities were given to others. So from a Yuxi's punishment a few days ago to Uriel's death today, for many people, it was hard to say whether they were happy or sad. Lin Yuxi stood there motionlessly. She didn't see Jiang Wang, or rather, she didn't look at anyone. Uriel's death was like losing a symbol to the people in the blue metal system. It was the end of a legend in the blue metal system. Only for Lin Yuxi, she had lost her last family member. Jiang Wang and Zhang Xiangming walked into the crowd. This was the crowd that came to welcome the coffin. The Northern Yamen's commandant, Zhang Shi, naturally stood at the very front. He commanded the entire Northern Yamen in a dignified manner. As soon as Jiang Wang walked over, the crowd moved away silently and made way for Jiang Wang. This was the place where people in Beia thought Jiang Wang should be. Zhang Xiangming, the son of the Northern Yamen commandant, could only stand behind them. Jiang Wang walked to that position, but did not stop. Instead, he continued walking forward. "Vice Envoy Lin, why aren't you standing over here?" The crowd parted to form a path. The starting point of the path was Jiang Wang, and the ending point was Lin Yuxi. The stupefied Lin Yuxi seemed to have realized something and turned his head around. All she saw was Jiang Wang striding in and reaching out his hand. She subconsciously moved aside, but naturally, she couldn't. Jiang Wang grabbed her arm and pulled her to the front of the crowd. Wherever he went, there would be a path. By the time she realized what was going on, she and Jiang Wang were standing side by side at the front of the crowd. Zhang Shi didn't say anything, and the crowd was silent. Jiang Wang had let go of her arm, but Lin Yuxi could still feel the strength of his grip on her arm. The scene of him passing through the crowd and walking towards her was imprinted in her mind. Even though her first reaction at that time was to avoid it, her eyes clearly remembered this was the only hand that reached out to her in that cold and collapsed world. Uriel's body was sent back to Linzi as soon as it was found. The cause of his death was still unknown. Uriel had resigned from the Blue Metal. He had no position and he died overseas. What reason could the Provincial Inspection Office have to file a case? Why did they have to investigate? Even who would be willing to investigate? Uriel had lost his blue metal. He had gained freedom, but he had also lost his protection. To put it bluntly, he had secretly investigated the Tion family of days in Qi, which was the path to his death. If the Tion family really wanted to kill him, who could say anything? Earlier, when Tion Huanwen attacked Uriel overseas, Uriel could only avoid the attack and escape back to Qi. He also didn't see anyone from the patrol manor taking the lead to knock them down. Of course, after all, Uriel was a famous arrester who had left a deep mark in the history of the blue metal. Just by looking at the number of people who came to greet the coffin today, one could see how important he was. If the murderer was really the Tion family of days, it would inevitably arouse the hostility of the entire blue metal system. Perhaps they couldn't do anything about Uriel's death. There were still many days to come, and they would inevitably be targeted. It seemed that the reason why Uriel could investigate the Tion family of days alone for so many years was not only because of his own caution, but also because of the Tion family of days. All in all, for the Tion family of days, killing Uriel would not have immediate serious consequences, but it would definitely have a long-term negative impact. It was not in line with the low-key strategy of the Tion family of days in recent years. Other than Tion Anping, the Tion family of days had indeed been very low-key in recent years. Therefore, it was unknown who the murderer was, and it might not necessarily be the Tion family. Then the question came back. Who would investigate? Jiang Wang stood silently in front of the crowd. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked Zheng Shangming, "How long until Tion Anping breaks the seal?" Zheng Shangming said hesitantly, "He killed Liu Shentong in the 46th year of the Yuanfeng era. It will be 10 years next year." Obviously, this young Master Zheng had similar thoughts. Uriel was suddenly killed, and Dai Mingming's body was floating in the sea. This kind of reckless style was too similar to that lunatic. Jiang Wang breathed a sigh of relief. He was not sure if Tion Anping had seen him last time in the Seven Stars Valley. But such a dangerous person would always make people uneasy. But this uneasiness only passed by briefly, and then he began to cultivate again. When it was time to face it, he would face it. A group of famous people in the blue metal system waited silently in front of the provincial inspection office. This scene made the streets near the northern Yamen very nervous. For a long time, even the peddlers' cries could not be heard. The northern Yamen commandant Zheng sure could not help but glance at Jiang Wang next to him. So many people present to welcome the coffin were waiting with different feelings. Some were nervous, some were sad, and some were angry. In the end, they were all suppressed. Only the most dazzling young Tianjiao was cultivating. Others saw diligence, but he saw clear-headedness. Maintaining clear-headedness in the crowd. Jiang Wang was obviously a person with a clear goal and knew very well what he wanted. Previously, Zheng Shi could not understand why this young man would refuse the position of Northern Yamen Commandant. Now, he could somewhat understand. In the end, their paths were different. When Yang Weidong personally drove the carriage over, it was already late at night. I met Elder Wu on the sea and asked for a thin coffin in Tianfu City. I traveled without stopping. This disciple of Yi Xingqian, the Minister of Imperial Affairs, explained. He was covered in dust from a journey. Zheng Shi just silently walked to the coffin and gently opened the lid. He lowered his head to look at the person in the coffin. Elder Wu. He sighed, went home. The front of the patrol office was surrounded by people. Almost all the blue metal arresters looked sad. Speaking of which, who had struggled in the blue metal system for a few years had not been taught by Uriel. Some could not help but cry out loud. Some silently shed tears. Of course, there were people who were happy to see the building collapse. There were also people who secretly vowed to find out the truth one day and avenge Elder Wu. But in this mournful atmosphere, there was a calm voice that rang out, "I want to do an autopsy." In the crowd, only Lin Yuxi was expressionless. Yang Weitong looked at her and said, "Of course an autopsy is necessary. There must be an explanation for Elder Wu's death. This is what we do, but according to the established rules, people close to the deceased would not be responsible for the autopsy." Because of emotional fluctuations, it was easy to cause deviation in the results. At least, they could not be the first to do the autopsy, in case the results were not objective and some clues were destroyed. Of course, Lin Yuxi knew the rules, but she just repeated, "I want to do an autopsy." Her eyes were too determined, too stubborn. Many people present could be said to have watched her grow up. They saw how the little girl grew up step by step to become what she was today. In the entire Baya, she did not trust anyone now. But who could not understand? Yang Weidong was silent. Zheng Shi sighed. Let her do it. Lin Yuxi walked closer, looked down at the body for a moment, and reached out to close the coffin lid. There was still no expression on her face. There was no sadness, no tears. Jiang Wang walked forward silently, lifted the coffin, and turned to walk into the Baya. I will help you. Lin Yuxi did not speak, just silently followed behind him. The crowd made way for them. 2 people and a coffin went straight to the morgue. To go to the morgue, they had to pass through the Baya prison. It was not the first time Jiang Wang had come to this road. Lifting the coffin, they walked past the bare iron house. Not long after, Zheng Xiaoming followed. It was natural for someone to watch the autopsy. In a situation where Jiang Wang and Lin Yuxi were on the same side, there was a need for a third person to supervise. Zheng Xiaoming, who was in charge of Feng Gu's case with them, was obviously the best choice. It was not someone like Zheng Shi who could grasp the propriety of this. Although the 3 of them were considered the backbone of the blue metal system, the constable on duty at the morgue still carefully recorded the condition of Uriel's body and asked the 3 of them to sign before opening a separate morgue for them. Coincidentally, this morgue was just opposite the one Jiang Wang came the last time. If it was not locked and the doors on both sides were wide open, Feng Gu's coffin should be visible from here. Jiang Wang looked at the constable for a while before putting down the coffin in his hand. Speaking of which, the 2 bodies in the morgue had died because of the same case. They had struggled from the beginning until now, so they died at the same time. Feng Gu's coffin and Uriel's coffin were facing each other, as if there was some kind of tacit understanding between them. After the constable left, Zheng Xiaoming explained casually, "There are rules, so it's normal to be stricter. It's not targeted at anyone. Brother Jiang, please don't mind." "Why should I mind?" Jiang Wang's lips twitched. "I'm just curious. If this place is so strict, how did that person sneak in last time?" Zheng Xiaoming was silent for a moment before saying, "The person who sneaked in last time is called Qi Song. He has an uncle called Qi Huaichang." When talking about this matter before, he had only vaguely mentioned the name of the heart-nourishing palace and did not say who it was. He did not expect Jiang Wang to be so vengeful and ask him whenever he had the chance. Although he and Jiang Wang had different paths and were destined not to be close friends, he did not want to ruin their friendship. In comparison, it was not a big deal to reveal Qi Song's information. Qi Huaichang was also one of the deputy patrol inspectors with real power. His position in Baya was not lower than Yang Weidong's. It was easy for him to arrange for someone to enter the morgue. "Oh, Deputy Patrol Inspector Qi." Jiang Wang nodded to show that he understood and did not say anything else. At this time, Lin Yuxi had opened the coffin lid again, exposing Uriel's body to the air. This was a face that she was very familiar with. Because she was so familiar with it, it seemed so unfamiliar. For as long as she could remember, Grandpa Wu looked like an old man. This meant that he was not young when he became a god. However, his old age and his hale and hearty spirit could not hide his majestic strength and his determination to break through everything. Now it was dry like a circle of bark wrapped around a piece of rotten wood. A god would decay after death. There were special autopsy tools in the morgue, placed beside the stone table. However, Lin Yuxi just silently took out a small black wooden box from his storage box. She took out the first drawer, chose a pair of gloves, and slowly put them on. Then, she took out the third drawer and chose a 2-inch-long sharp knife from a variety of knives. She closed the wooden box. The whole process was very peaceful. Now, she held the knife in her right hand, slowly unbuttoning the old man's clothes with her left hand and gently pressed on his left shoulder. The thin corpse in front of her and the coldness she could feel through the gloves were silently telling her the truth. That person said, I follow my dharma, I walk my Tao. The person who did not care about anything and did not avoid ghosts and humans no longer existed. Your dharma is in the blue metal, your Tao is in the Sanqing Palace. If you really did not care about anything, why did you give up everything in Baya and pursue it alone for so many years because of your good friend's death? If you did not avoid ghosts and humans, why did you treat me like your own and take care of me for so many years? There were so many questions that could only be kept in the heart, and there would never be an answer. Lin Yuxi was silent. So, what was the point of pursuing the truth? What was the point of pursuing the truth? Was it to lose another family member because of the injustice of one? Facing the corpse in front of her, for the first time, she doubted the path she had walked for so many years. Jiang Wang and Zheng Shangming were also silent, waiting for her to make a move. Lin Yuxi silently made the first cut. The tip of the knife pierced 2 inches into the shoulder. She skillfully pulled it diagonally and drew a half arc. She gently lifted the knife and pulled the wound open, revealing the muscles and veins. She looked at it carefully and memorized it in her heart, then pushed the cut back into the flesh. After a simple cleaning, she put away the knife and took out a translucent cone. It was only slightly thicker than a nail, but it was 5 inches long. She walked a few steps on the side of the corpse's waist with her left index and middle finger and pressed it down. Naturally, the cone went in. Jiang Wang and Zheng Shangming looked at Lin Yuxi silently and completed all the autopsy work. From the scalp to the toes, from the skin to the internal organs, they did not miss any possible clues. She was so calm. Her movements were clean and precise, without any hesitation. Even with the most critical eyes, they could not find any mistakes. Zheng Shangming, who silently memorized all the data of the corpse, could not help but marvel at her superb skills. Compared to Jiang Wang, he, who came from a family of scholars, could understand skills better. He looked at Lin Yuxi, who was already putting away the wooden box, and was actually more surprised by her calmness during the process. "Did you take your medicine today?" Jiang Wang sniffed gently and suddenly asked. Lin Yuxi was stunned, and her hand stopped in the middle of putting away the knife. It turned out that she had forgotten her fear. Chapter 1396. For a skilled coroner. Dissecting a corpse was a piece of cake. It was no different from cutting up a piece of pork, but if the corpse belonged to one's loved one, it was inevitable that the knife would tremble and the hands would tremble. Who could be heartless? As for Jiang Wang's question, Lin Yuxi was silent for a while. Then she closed the wooden box and put it back into the storage box. "I forgot to drink it," she said calmly. Zheng Shangming didn't know that Lin Yuxi had a phobia, so he couldn't understand her emotions. He just asked, "Deputy Lin, have you finished the examination?" "Yes, it's done," Lin Yuxi said. "Any clues?" Zheng Shangming asked. "Do you really want to know?" Lin Yuxi asked. "Of course," Zheng Shangming said. "Why? Is it inconvenient to say?" There were 7 wounds on the body, but only one of them could be considered fatal. The hole in the skull should have been caused by the wind from the finger, the index finger. The remaining 6 wounds were obviously caused after death. The wounds were very irregular, which should have been caused by a kind of scavenger fish near Hainan Island called insect rhinoceros. I think the real cause of his death should be the collapse of his divine soul. The golden body and jade marrow disintegrate after death. The hole in the skull was added later to confuse the public. I have good reason to suspect that the person who killed him was not from the outer sea, and Hainan Island was not the first scene of his death. Lin Yuxi said all this in one breath, then looked at Zheng Shangming. "I've said so much. Will the northern government investigate the Tian family of days?" Zheng Shangming was stunned for a moment, then reluctantly said, "Well, it depends on the decision of the higher-ups." Lin Yuxi didn't say anything else, just turned and walked out. Jiang Wang followed her in silence. Neither of them said anything and just walked out of the northern government in silence. The people who had come to welcome the coffin had already left. It seemed that the grief that had enveloped the entire northern government had only happened when they saw Uriel's body. "Why are you following me?" Lin Yuxi suddenly asked. People tend to make stupid choices when they are irrational, Jiang Wang said. We work together, and I don't want you to die in the name of a fool. Everything is over, Lin Yuxi said. Now that the famous Constable Uriel was dead, the clues from tyrannical Horn Island's Guxing would only be hidden even deeper. Even if there was one before, it must have been erased by now. In the absence of conclusive evidence, no matter how they suspected or analyzed, no matter how reasonable the analysis was, it was all in vain. There was nothing crueler than this. It had been 17 years since the assassination of noble consort Lei. Uriel and Lin Yuxi had also pursued him for 17 years. In the past 17 years, of course, he had learned something, but he had never been able to get close to the core truth. They were fighting alone, so it was difficult for them to make progress. Until Feng Gu's sudden death this time, leaving behind clues that pointed to the current empress. Only then did the dusty truth vaguely surface in the water. Just one more step. He was only one step away from the truth, but he couldn't take this step no matter what. How did he feel when Uriel's body floated on the sea? It must be a pity, right? But just as Lin Yuxi said, everything was over. Any rational person would understand that this farce was over. Feng Gu was dead. Gong Sunyu was dead. Uriel was dead. If the endless investigation continued, more people would die, and the truth wouldn't be revealed. More people would only die a meaningless death. Among the more people, of course, could include Yang Jing, Lin Yuxi, and even Jiang Wang. The only reason Lin Yuxi was still alive was because of her position as an official. As the deputy of the patrol inspector, she had a blue medal on her waist for many years. Killing her was tantamount to challenging the dignity of the country. But if it really came to a point where she had to be killed, the person behind the scenes would not be soft-hearted. After all, even noble consort Lei was dead. Why couldn't a mere deputy of the patrol inspector be killed? Yes, it seems that everything is over, Jiang Wang said, but you won't give up. Lin Yuxi continued to walk forward without saying anything. Jiang Wang followed behind and continued. You said that you have a firm heart like mine, so I know you won't give up. What can I do if I don't give up? Lin Yuxi said. Jiang Wang said, life is very long. There are many possibilities in the future. Don't worry, I won't do anything stupid. Lin Yuxi raised her hand to stop him and then waved it. Please go back, Lord Jiang, she said. I want to be alone. Jiang Wang stopped in his tracks and quietly watched her walk away. Lindsay was very big, and there were many people. This slightly frail figure walked into the busy street and quickly disappeared. The more prosperous Lindsay was, the more lonely the people who were neglected by the city. Look at the turbulent crowd. It was so ordinary. However, every drop of water in the crowd was a person who had spent a long time trekking through life. Everyone had their own story, their own choices, and their own difficulties. Who didn't suffer in the world? That was why the Buddhists said that this was the sea of suffering. Jiang Wang calmed himself down and was about to turn back to the mansion when suddenly a voice sounded in his ears. Lin Kuang did die of suicide back then. That's all I can say. This voice was obviously disguised. It was very androgynous and hard to distinguish. It was impossible to find the original voice. Jiang Wang instantly activated his immortal mode and almost immediately traced the source of the voice. He turned his head and saw a figure disappearing around the corner of the street. There was a street in front of the patrol mansion. Opposite the street was a high wall. Behind the high wall was a cluster of houses specially built for blue metal constables. Many constables lived there. The environment was very good. The long street extended to both sides. At the end of both sides, there was a long street that cut vertically. It was basically an inverted gong-shaped layout. Bea was to the north of this inverted gong-shaped layout. Except for the street in front of the patrol mansion, which was slightly deserted, the streets on both sides were very lively. Lin Yuxi walked on the west side of the street. The mysterious voice went on the east side. When Jiang Wang caught the source of the voice, he stepped on the ground and shattered the green cloud. He took a step forward and rushed to the east side of the street as fast as he could. However, both sides of the street were bustling with people. The sea of people squeezed here and there. Everyone was busy with their own lives. How could they find any trace of the mysterious man? Who was it? Why did he come here to say this? Was it because of the so-called simple sense of justice or pity for Lin Yuxi? Or was it because some force didn't want to let the case come to a deadlock and deliberately gave this hint? Jiang Wang now understood Lin Yuxi's state of mind all these years. He understood the sentence in Feng Gu's will. Looking around, no one doubts. Du Fang could be considered half a disciple of Lin Kuang. However, he was the one who threw Lin Kuang's body in front of Lin Yuxi. He was a third-grade Golden Gourd warrior and a fourth-grade Blue Metal constable. He strictly followed the rules and went to the autopsy room to do an autopsy. Someone concealed their identity and followed him. He took a carriage from Bea on a mission. The coachman was a subordinate of Bea. Gong Sun Yu didn't say a word and didn't reveal any information. However, he still died in the blink of an eye. Uriel was a famous constable, and his cultivation was at a mortal realm. In the end, his body floated on the sea. When it came to the assassination of noble consort Lei, everyone and everything became complicated. Therefore, even if this voice transmission had a strong hint, Jiang Wang was still very vigilant. But then again, if what this mysterious person said was true, Lin Kuang did commit suicide back then. Then why? How could a person like Lin Kuang, the most outstanding Blue Metal constable in history, a person who took the Blue Metal as his life's glory, commit suicide? Why would he choose such an undignified ending? The answer was actually very obvious. When he returned to the mansion, Chung Gungsheng was also there. The fat man was holding a big knife that hadn't been sharpened yet. He was exchanging blows with 14th Prince. This wasn't a big deal. The only problem was the place where they were exchanging blows was Jiang Wang's courtyard. Can't you fight somewhere else? As soon as he entered the door, Jiang Wang couldn't help but frown. I spent money to decorate this courtyard. Chung Gungsheng said without looking back. I'll pay you double if you break it. Jiang Wang immediately stopped talking. They were all friends. There was no need to be calculative. Anyway, as long as he closed the bedroom and blocked out the sound, he could cultivate. He wasn't afraid of being disturbed. A truly diligent cultivator should have the willpower to cultivate in a busy city. This is for you. Chung Gungsheng casually threw over a small booklet in the dazzling light of the knife. The results of Gong Sun Yu's investigation. He was probably waiting for Jiang Wang here. Practicing the knife was just something he did along the way. Jiang Wang reached out to catch it and muttered, "You're so hard-working. It's not like you." Chung Gungsheng said angrily, "You cultivate in front of me every day. How can I be lazy?" Okay. Don't get angry. You can continue." Jiang Wang didn't want to anger him for now. He stood by the door of the courtyard and quietly read through the intelligence reports in the courtyard that was full of sabers and swords. The information investigated by the Shadow Guardians almost completely outlined Gong Sun Yu's track after he left the Longevity Palace. The information supported by many sources could be verified. The Longevity Palace had indeed been secretly investigating the case of Imperial concubine Lei, but it suddenly stopped last year. This information was completely consistent with Jiang Wang's own inference. Jiang Wuqi did find out the truth and then chose to keep silent. Gong Sun Yu also chose to cut his tongue in order to keep this secret. He put away the information and took out the Sauvignon Blanc. As soon as the sword rang, Chung Gungsheng seemed to have received a signal. He suddenly jumped out of the battle, put the knife behind him, and looked at Jiang Wang warily. "What are you doing? That's not the way to use a knife." Jiang Wang's expression was very sincere. "Good brother, I found some problems in your knife skills." Chung Gungsheng put the knife directly into the storage box, sat down on the stone chair, and rolled his eyes. "It's none of your business." His fat body was shaking, and he looked like he was saying, "I'm unarmed now. If you don't have a moral bottom line, come and chop me." Jiang Wang was a little regretful, but he could only put the sword away. He said, "You're too immodest. Your progress is very slow." Objectively speaking, Chung Gungsheng's knife skills were definitely not bad. It could even be said that he had quite good attainments. But he was indeed a little bit away from the top level of this realm. Not only his knife skills, Chung Gung Sheng had high attainments in all kinds of Taoist magic arts, secret arts, boxing, and body movements, but none of them reached the top. He was too smart. He was so smart that he didn't need to work hard to reach a very high level. But to reach the top level, he couldn't rely only on his cleverness. More importantly, he needed to work hard. He needed to devote himself wholeheartedly to it. He needed to catch fleeting inspirations in his daily practice. In short, he was still too distracted. Chung Gung Sheng himself understood this point. But although opponents like Jiang Wang could help him a little, the effect was very limited in a situation where it was impossible to fight to the death. He wouldn't give Jiang Wang a legitimate opportunity to beat him up. He was very clear about where his path was. Only the official path could integrate all his talents into one place. Of course, this path should start with the title of Marquis Baon. It could save him decades of hard work. Chung Gung Sheng slumped on the stone chair and curled his lips. You don't even want the position of the commandant of the Northern Yamen. Your progress is even slower. I'm too lazy to care about you. Jiang Wang sneered. He walked around him and went straight into the room. Look, you don't like to hear this, do you? Jiang Wang turned his head. Then why don't you say something that I like to hear? Chung Gung Sheng said, Our Dushing Chamber of Commerce's business is very good this year. There will be a lot of dividends at the end of the year. Jiang Wang's taut face showed a hint of a smile. But we can't split it. We still have to invest in expanding the business, Chung Gung Sheng said. If you ask me, 14 shouldn't have spoiled you, Jiang Wang said angrily. Do you know that 14 swordsmanship is much better than yours? She only suppressed her strength so that she could compare notes with you. You still think that you don't need guidance every day. You're not modest at all. You have no self-awareness. Compared to Chung Gung Sheng, 14 swordsmanship was at the peak of this realm. Who knew how much hard work this girl, who hid under the iron armor all year round, had done secretly? However, 14 still hadn't gotten the supernatural power. This was one of her innate shortcomings. Really? Chung Gung Sheng turned his head to look at 14. 14 finally said softly, Only a little better than you. You're too good. How can you be so excellent? Chung Gung Sheng laughed so hard that his eyes disappeared. I don't need to work hard at all. Jiang Wang frowned. We've given the information and we've exchanged notes. If you don't have anything else, why don't you go back to your own courtyard? Don't disturb the cultivation in Tianjiao, the #1 city in Qi. He deliberately pointed out 14's swordsmanship progress to humiliate this fatty. But this fatty didn't look like he was being humiliated at all. He almost hugged the iron lump and gnawed on it. He had to chase him away. 14 even took a step back as if he had nothing to hide. Ahem. Chung Gung Sheng coughed lightly. He didn't look embarrassed at all. He said seriously, Don't get involved anymore. Uncle Jiang? Jiang Wang didn't say anything. Chung Gung Sheng said again, You're only in charge of supervising the progress of the case. You can quit at any time. This is the stage that the Emperor gave you. If you don't take it now, when will you? He gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. He gave you a stage, but you didn't take it. What do you want to do? How much do you think the Emperor will tolerate you? Jiang Wang retreated into the bedroom and scolded jokingly, It's none of your business. He closed the door. Chapter 1397. The morning light and the sound of wheels woke the city. The carriage responsible for purchasing goods left the back door of the Jiang residence in the morning light. The Jiang residence now had stewards, coachmen, cooks, and maids. There were more than 20 people. People ate and horses chewed. There were expenses everywhere. Every day, they bought groceries by baskets. Yawang Square had its own market. Probably because the people who lived here were either rich or noble. The food here was much more expensive than other places. The meticulous steward, Xie, naturally wouldn't let his family suffer such a loss. It wasn't as if the Jiang residents didn't have a carriage. A few more steps, and they would arrive at the largest market in Linzi, Huyang Square. The vegetables were fresh and cheap, especially the fresh fish. In short, they came here to buy groceries every day. But just as they entered Huyang Square, a figure came down from the carriage. Lord Jiang had a beard on his face, and changed his Rui immortal robe into a tight outfit. He calmly blended into the crowd. Although he said that it had nothing to do with Chung Gong-sheng, he still needed Chung Gong-sheng's help to cover for him. Therefore, young Master Sheng started to practice martial arts in the courtyard early in the morning. At the same time, he ordered the servants in the residence to go around in circles. It was hard to say how many pairs of eyes were watching the Jiang residence now. Some had been discovered, some had not. Young Master Sheng scolded someone for being stupid and stubborn. He didn't miss a single thing that should be done. When the green brick hurried over, young Master Sheng had just molded the metal ball in his hand into a small person and carved the words Jiang Man on it. Young Master. He half knelt on the ground and brought the news. Chung Gong-sheng showed his masterpiece to 14. Does it look like him? Does it look like him? He took a moment to ask, what's the matter? Regarding the latest news about young Master Zun, Marquis Ding Yuan asked me to pass it to you. The green brick reported. Old Marquis should have received the news by now. That scared me. I thought something happened on Jiang Wang's side. It's not a good thing that there's movement so soon. Chung Gong-sheng muttered. He said carelessly, that good brother of mine, what shocking move did he make? Come, let's stand and talk. One by one, let's drink. He put aside the Iron Man he had just made, picked up the wine pot on the small stove, poured himself a cup of hot wine, and looked at 14 with the wine pot in his hand. 14 shook his head, and he drank by himself. Young Master Zun was hunting in the bewildering world when he encountered the son of the Dark King. This son of the Dark King is said to be the #1 bloodline descendant of the Dark King, Qing Brick said. 14 took out a few dishes that were still steaming hot from the food box and let Chung Gong-sheng drink with them. Chung Gong-sheng picked a few chopsticks and said, that's all there is to it. Didn't Jiang Wang also kill the son of the Blood King? Of course, they ignored the fact that Yuan Gu, whom Jiang Wang killed, was ranked very low. He was only a mid-level commander. The one Yung Genzuan had killed was a top-level sea-race commander. The Blood King was indeed in no way inferior to the Dark King. The two bloodline descendants, with different rankings, were worlds apart. Of course, Jiang Wang wasn't as powerful as he was now. The Chongyi King personally chased after young Master Zun. Qing Brick said, young Master Zun successfully escaped. Chung Gong-sheng glared at Qing Brick. Why are you taking so long to speak? I thought my brother was dead. I didn't even know whether to laugh or cry. The Sea Race's two-word king was also known as a fake king. It was similar to the human race's divine, or rival realm cultivators. Yung Genzuan was able to escape from the pursuit of a Sea Race's king. It was very impressive. Qing Brick continued to report. Later on, the Dark King personally came to the bewildering world, and spiritual master Qi stopped him. Zhong Xian Sheng snorted coldly. You have quite the face. Qing Brick's tone became serious. The Sea Race seems to be determined to kill young Master Zun. They are mobilizing troops everywhere, and the entire bewildering world is in chaos. A war almost broke out. It's said that Wan Tong personally arranged it. Chung Gong-sheng picked up a piece of meat with his chopsticks and took a big gulp of wine. Qing Brick continued. Perfected Monarch Chun do use this to find Wan Tong's true body. He gathered 3 perfected monarchs and the martial arts expert Wang Ao and went deep into the sea to ambush Wan Tong. They returned with a dragon horn. Although they didn't succeed completely, they still destroyed Wan Tong's cultivation for at least 100 years. This was indeed a big event that had never happened in the near sea for 100 years. Wei Sun's reputation was definitely at its peak overseas. After accomplishing such a feat, this could be said to have stabilized the situation of the near sea islands. The prestige that the Sea Guardian Alliance should have gathered was also established. The state of Qi's efforts during this period of time had all been for naught. Wan Tong was guarding the vortex of eternal darkness and supporting the evolution of the Sea Race alone. He was still able to survive the ambush of 4 perfected monarchs and a martial arts expert Wang Ao. His strength had obviously surpassed the peak of the transcendent realm. Of course, for Chung Gong-sheng, the more important thing was, what did Yung Genzuan show that made someone like Wan Tong personally come and set up a trap to kill him? Has the evolution of the sea race been interrupted? Chung Gung Sheng asked. Qing Brick shook his head. I don't think so. Otherwise, the news would have spread like wildfire, and perfected monarch Chengdu's reputation would have reached a higher level. Then, what about Yung Gunzuan? Young Master Zun was severely injured, but in the chaotic battle, he killed 2 of the top blood descendants of the Dark King. Perfected monarch Blood River, who went to the sea with perfected monarch Chengdu, said that he wanted to take him as his disciple, but he rejected. Chung Gung Sheng swirled his wine cup. Is it the same thing again? Yes. Why are these people rushing to praise him and give him fame? Chung Gung Sheng frowned and asked. Qing Brick obviously couldn't answer this question. Chung Gung Sheng raised his cup and drank all the wine, then sighed. He's really the main character of a storyteller's novel, born with perfect meridians. Perfected monarch's favor at such a young age. In a few years, he had the reputation of being a physiognomist, the best in Linzi. On the Riverview platform, he was known as the best. Once he went to the bewildering world, he stirred up a storm. He turned the world upside down and created waves in the sea. He turned to look at 14 and smiled. It makes me look like one of those useless villains in the books who only knows how to scheme and scheme. Isn't that right? 14 reached out and brushed his hair, then said softly, The you I saw was always the main character. Chung Gung Sheng looked at her, as if he could see her face through the heavy iron helmet. However, due to Qing Brick's presence, he only held her hand. Then he said, But this is good news. 14 tilted her head, obviously not quite understanding why Yung Ginzuan's limitless glory in the bewildering world was good news. Chung Gung Sheng sighed. Tianjiao's weight has increased, and Jiang Qingyang can gain more tolerance because of this. Where's my uncle? Chung Gung Sheng asked again. He had 2 uncles. One was his biological uncle, and the other was his paternal uncle. However, Qing Brick obviously knew who he was asking about, so he lowered his head and said, Master Ho went out to sea to pick up young Master Zun. Chung Gung Sheng nodded. That's reasonable. With his keen sense of smell, it wasn't difficult to judge that Yung Gunzuan was being used as bait by Wei Sun and the others in the bewildering world. Besides Chong Xian and Chu Liang, Zheng Genjia had no one to back up Yung Gunzuan. He waved his hand, and Qing Brick withdrew. 14 looked at him quietly and didn't say anything. He looked at the exquisite wine and dishes on the table, and suddenly lost interest. He sighed and casually passed the blame. It's all because of Jiang Qingyang's fickleness that he didn't drink with me. This wine is tasteless. Then he turned his head, only to see the shy girl take off her iron helmet and whisper, I'll drink with you a little. After turning east and west for a long time, Jiang Wang casually turned into an old alley. There was no one around. Under the combination of the red makeup mirror and the immortal state of sound and hearing, there were not many people who could hide from his perception. Of course, this range was limited to those who were sent to monitor Lin Yuxi. He perfectly walked into the blind spots of several hidden sentries and stepped out without any commotion and landed in the courtyard. As usual, the red makeup mirror led the way, reflecting the layout of the entire courtyard in his heart. He walked to a bedroom with closed doors and gently knocked on the door. The sound was well controlled, and only the people in the room could hear. Who is it? Lin Yuxi's vigilant voice sounded from inside. She must have used some kind of secret method, because the direction of the sound was different from where she was. Of course, this couldn't be hidden from the immortal state of sound and hearing. It's me, Jiang Wang said in a low voice. With a squeak, the door opened. Lin Yuxi looked at Jiang Wang in the room with a complicated expression. Jiang Wang stepped into the room and closed the door. Why are you here? Lin Yuxi asked. Jiang Wang said, I thought there were too many people yesterday, and it might not be convenient for you to tell me. Lin Yuxi was silent for a while, and said, Find a place to sit. She turned and walked to the table by the wall. I'm still making medicine. Jiang Wang looked around and said, It's okay, I'll just stand. This really didn't look like a girl's room. Of course, how many girls had he, the one surnamed Jiang, entered their boudoirs? He wasn't qualified to comment. However, this didn't look like a place for a normal person to rest either. He did look around seriously, but other than the bed, there didn't seem to be any other place to sit. Who would sit on a girl's bed the moment they met? Are there many people outside? Lin Yuxi asked casually. I found 7. I can't find any, so I don't know if there are any, Jiang Wang said honestly. Lin Yuxi slowly pounded the medicine and said, in most cases, I should be safe. My official position can be considered to be of some use. Moreover, there are so many people watching. Jiang Wang thought for a while and said, in the system, you are bound by the system and protected by the system, because protecting the people in the system is protecting the system, and protecting the system is protecting your own power. The views in the 7 chapters of the Theory of the Nation. Lin Yuxi didn't turn her head. You summed it up very well. Jiang Wang coughed, and in order to liven up the atmosphere, he said, do you need to read so many books to solve a case? Lin Yuxi was silent for a while and said, this is the introductory book of legalism. Jiang Wang looked around again and then asked, is there anything I can do for you? Do you sympathize with me? Lin Yuxi asked while pounding the medicine. Miss Lin, please don't misunderstand. Don't misunderstand. Lin Yuxi interrupted. I'm actually very grateful for your sympathy. As the most dazzling young man in Tianjiao of Qi, you don't act high and mighty, but you sympathize with me, and I'm very grateful. However, you shouldn't pay too much for sympathy. Wait till the day you stand at the peak, then you can give me a little sympathy. I don't have any fragile self-esteem now, and I'm really grateful to you. I have to admit, your experience is pitiful. I have to admit, I have such feelings in my heart. How can I not? Jiang Wang said seriously, but I want to do something for you, not only because of sympathy, not only because we have worked together a few times, but also because of fairness. He said, because I also want the truth. I think in this world, there should be truth. It has nothing to do with interests, emotions, or other factors, just the truth itself. Because if the truth itself can be mixed with too many things, then there will be no just result. And if the truth is not the truth itself, then it is the greatest injustice to the weak. If the truth was not pure, if it was influenced by something, then it would not be clean, and the truth of the weak would not come. In Maplewood City, there were hundreds of thousands of people who were eternally silent. What kind of answer do they want? You have great beliefs, Lin Yuxi said slowly. Lin Yuxi said slowly, unfortunately, all I have is a stubborn, selfish desire to seek justice for my father. Of course, she believed in the blue metal, in justice, and in the truth. But in the past 17 years, these beliefs had gradually eroded and finally fell in front of Uriel's corpse. She used to believe in justice, but now she only had selfishness left. If there is a path to justice, I think it will be paved with justice. So even if we walk different paths, we can still return to the same place, Jiang Wang said. Lin Yuxi put down the wooden pestle, turned around, and stared at Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang subconsciously explained, I thought of this sentence myself. The lights in the room were not turned on, and the doors and windows were tightly shut, so even in the middle of the day, the room was very dark. But as transcendent cultivators, they could obviously see each other clearly. Lin Yuxi could not be considered a soul-stirring beauty. Of course, being stared at by her penetrating eyes, it was hard to be in the mood to care about her appearance. Can I completely trust you? She asked. Jiang Wang only said, I think, when you asked me, you already had an answer to this question. Lin Yuxi was not a hesitant person, so she said without hesitation, Grandpa Wu used his own corpse to leave me 2 clues. A corpse was made of clues. The first time Jiang Wang heard this sentence, it was from Lin Yuxi. At that time, he only felt that it was cruel and that this sentence was too cold. But at this moment, he felt a burning devotion that only belonged to the blue metal. So that was how the old man whose corpse floated in the sea described this sentence. What clues? Jiang Wang asked. The first one is the 10,000 spirit freezing snow. 10,000 spirit freezing snow? It is the cause of imperial concubine Lei's death, and also the root cause of the 11th prince's cold poison. So, if we find the 10,000 spirit freezing snow, we can find a real murderer, right? Lin Yuxi did not answer, but continued. The second clue that Grandpa Wu left in the corpse is Tian Shili, the current head of the Tian family of days, Marquis Gaochong Tian Shili. Chapter 1398. Jiang Wang was silent for a while. He recalled the Marquis who was stripped of his clothes and whipped to the point that he could not even stand properly. He finally digested the news and said, "Sir Wu, you mean Tian Shili was the one who did it? How dare he?" Lin Yuxi did not answer directly, but explained the 10,000 spirit freezing snow is not a naturally occurring poison. It is not even considered poison. It was first refined because of a Taoist technique called the triple nine cold cicada. This Taoist technique is powerful and strange. The cultivation process is very difficult. Only 1 in 10,000 cultivators can master it. But with the help of the 10,000 spirit freezing snow, one can master it very quickly. Jiang Wang thought that this was similar to the art of immortality. Lin Yuxi continued. The process of making the 1,000 spirit freezing snow is to take the blood from the fingertips of 9 babies with different fate, the blood from the forehead of 9 little girls with different personalities, the blood from the heart of 9 adults with different professions, and the soul of 9 different creatures. Finally, they will be melted together with the secret technique of the triple nine cold cicada. In the end, they will form a snowflake. Because there are more than 10,000 combinations of materials for this object, it is impossible to calculate. That is why it is called 1,000 spirit freezing snow. Later, someone discovered that even without the cultivation of the triple nine cold cicada, once the 10,000 spirit freezing snow comes into contact with human blood, the cold poison will enter one's life instantly. There is no cure. Only then did it exist as a poison. Moreover, it is one of the most poisonous substances in the world. Everyone's final product is different. After the 10,000 spirit freezing snow comes into contact with human blood, one can only be saved if the antidote for the 10,000 spirit freezing snow is taken within 3 breaths. But even if one recognizes the 10,000 spirit freezing snow, who can make the appropriate antidote within 3 breaths? If one does not know which 9 birth charts, which 9 personalities, which 9 professions, which 9 creatures, there is no way to cure this cold poison, other than the refiner of the 10,000 spirit freezing snow. Who would know? Therefore, the 10,000 spirit freezing snow is almost undefeatable. At the same time, every one of it is unique in the world. At the moment of life and death, the things that can be left behind are very limited. I think the clue that Grandpa Wu left behind is that he found the 10,000 spirit freezing snow that matches the case of Imperial Concubine Lei from Tian Shili. In other words, he finally found evidence to confirm that Tian Shili was the one who made the 10,000 spirit freezing snow. Lin Yuxi said, and this is probably the reason why he died. Upon hearing this, Jiang Wang couldn't help but recall the painting of all living beings in the Longevity Palace. Was the observation of all living beings in the murals also Jiang Wuqi's analysis of the cold poison in his body? Had the 11th Highness been observing all this time? Whose blood was it? 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 Maybe there was no cure for the cold poison, but if it could ease it a little and give him more time, maybe there would be a different result. Jiang Wang sighed. Even if there was any evidence of the 10,000 spirit freezing snow, it must have been destroyed by now, right? Of course, Lin Yuxi said. Originally, if he had that piece of evidence, he could rely on the unique characteristics of the 10,000 spirit freezing snow to pin Tian Shili down. But now, all the evidence was gone, and Uriel was dead. In such a case, the most difficult part was not the investigation. Only a few people in the world could compare with Uriel in terms of investigation ability. But in this case, the difficult part was the person he had to face. It was the shadow that swallowed everything. Although he knew that the sun should be shining brightly outside, he still felt that the night was long and endless. Things have already turned out this way, Jiang Wang said energetically. We already know that the assassin back then was related to the Tian family of days. Anyway, we have a clear direction and locked on to the target. We have to investigate slowly. Sooner or later, they will give themselves away. Not really. Lin Yuxi shook his head. The person who entered the palace to assassinate imperial concubine Lei was not from the Tian family of days. Not from the Tian family of days. Jiang Wang felt that he was a little confused. Lin Yuxi said seriously, the Tian family of days should have provided the 10,000 spirit freezing snow, but the person who did it had nothing to do with them. Wait, do you mean that the assassination of imperial concubine Lei was the result of cooperation between several parties? Jiang Wang said keenly. Why would they divide into several groups to do such a big thing that could lead to the extermination of the whole family if they were not careful? It doesn't make sense, and it is definitely not a smart choice. From the perspective of the assassin, the fewer people involved in such a big thing as the assassination of imperial concubine Lei, the better. The simpler the process, the better. One more person would increase the danger of the information being leaked. One more person would increase the possibility of the information being exposed. This is also what puzzles me. Lin Yuxi said, but this is the evidence we have. The evidence will not lie. Jiang Wang pressed his forehead. No. If the person who entered the palace to assassinate imperial concubine Lei had nothing to do with the Tian family of days, then why did Senior Uriel investigate the Tian family for so many years? Because of my father. Lin Yuxi said, when my father investigated the assassination of imperial concubine Lei, he caught a person with his own hands. Later, it was proven that he caught the wrong person, but that person had died in prison. Because of this, the Baya government suffered great pressure. And then, there was the news that my father committed suicide out of fear of punishment. The person my father caught was called Tian Fun, and he was from a Tian family of days. At that time, he was the deputy general of the North Gate of the Imperial City Guards, and he was in charge of the security of the 9 city gates in the north of Linzi. When the assassination of imperial concubine Lei happened, he was drinking in the brothel. After later investigation, it was proven that he was not present at all and had nothing to do with the assassination of imperial concubine Lei. He was completely innocent. How could such an innocent person die in prison? Jiang Wang said, others said that your father caught the wrong person, so he committed suicide out of fear of punishment. But Senior Uriel did not believe that he would commit suicide out of fear of punishment, nor did he believe that he caught the wrong person. So he did not give up investigating the Tian family for so many years. Now the clue of the 10,000 spirit freezing snow has explained everything. Lin Yuxi said seriously, my father definitely did not catch the wrong person back then, but the evidence was destroyed. Looking at Lin Yuxi's resolute expression, Jiang Wang suddenly recalled that when they were overseas, Lin Yuxi had once lost control of his emotions. It was because he had questioned Lin Yuxi if he had never caught the wrong person. It turned out that there was such a story. In the years when Lin Kuang was denied, she worked hard to solve the case, never caring about the danger, just to rebuild the reputation of the blue metal aristocratic family. She did not want to catch the wrong person again. I still don't understand. Jiang Wang said slowly, since you were sure that there is a problem with the Tian family, why do you insist that the assassin has nothing to do with the Tian family of days? After my father died, the case was put on hold. Grandpa Wu wanted to restart the investigation several times, but he was rejected, so he could only resign. During that time, he concealed his identity and visited many places. Lin Yuxi said, Grandpa Wu found that the assassin who assassinated imperial concubine Lei had appeared in the same restaurant with He Fu before the incident. Of course, no one saw them communicating, but this in itself already constituted a clue. Uncle He? Jiang Wang said, so you were sure that the current empress was the real murderer at that time? No. Lin Yuxi shook her head. You don't know He Fu. This person is mediocre and does not have the ability to operate such a big event. The only time the assassin appeared in front of people was in the same restaurant with Yifu. Obviously, it was a kind of framing. So it was exactly at that time that Grandpa Wu excluded the current empress from the suspect list. Who would have thought? Her expression was a little bitter. Grandpa Wu's first suspect was the current empress, because there are not many people who can destroy all the clues in the palace. Later, after analysis and verification, he thought that she was not. So, she was excluded. Until this time, Fenggu used suicide to emphasize to us that the real murderer behind the scenes was the empress. Jiang Wang said in a low voice. The assassin and Yifu appeared in the same restaurant. Maybe it was the current empress's trick. She wanted to use Yifu's stupidity to make people think that this matter was a framing, so that the empress herself could be cleared of suspicion. Now that I think about it, it is possible, Lin Yuxi said, but Grandpa Wu could only investigate alone at that time. The assassin who killed imperial concubine, Lei, was a nameless person. No one could find out anything about him, and he died on the spot, so there was no way to trace back. But this is also a kind of clue. Before making a move, except for that one time in the restaurant, the assassin had no contact with anyone and left no trace in the world. He is not someone who can be cultivated by an ordinary force. He must be a man of sacrifice raised by an aristocratic family or a powerful sect. Of course, there are many forces in the world that can meet this requirement, but if we narrow it down to the eastern region or even Xi, there are not many. Jiang Wang said, of course, the Tian family is one of them. So is the Lei family, Lin Yuxi said. Jiang Wang frowned. The assassin sneaked in from one gate, and the palace guards guarding the gate were all killed afterwards. Even if there were any clues, they should have been destroyed. But we found that the leader of the palace guards at that time was surnamed Zhang. He had a 2-year-old son who was lost before the incident. Lin Yuxi said, we found this boy. He grew up in the Lei family, and now he is the deputy commander of the Lei family guards. It had to be said that Uriel and Lin Yuxi's hard work for so many years was not in vain, especially Uriel, who had found so many things alone without the support of the blue metal. He was definitely worthy of the title famous detective of the generation. But Jiang Wang only felt that he was in chaos again. The Lei family wanted to kill imperial concubine Lei? For what? Lin Yuxi looked at him and only asked, what if she is not dead? It was like a sudden clap of thunder across the night sky. What if imperial concubine Lei was not dead? No one would believe that a pregnant woman would design such a dangerous assassination scene by herself. So what if she was not dead? Then the fact that the assassin and Yifu appeared in the same restaurant was enough to implicate the current empress. That year was the 38th year of Yuanfeng. 3 years ago, the dethroned crown prince had just been imprisoned in the Green Stone Palace. Jiang Wuyang had completely left the throne, and there was no possibility for him to rise again. The current crown prince was also the official crown prince in the 2nd year of the dethroned crown prince's imprisonment in the Green Stone Palace, which was the 36th year of Yuanfeng. In the 38th year of Yuanfeng, when the assassination of imperial concubine Lei happened, Jiang Wuhua had only been crown prince for 2 years, and his position in the East Palace was not stable. Not to mention at that time, even until today, Jiang Wuhua's position as crown prince was not secure. Otherwise, how could Huaying Palace, Yangxing Palace, and Changxing Palace be built later? So, what if imperial concubine Lei was assassinated at this time and survived, and her child was saved? How angry would the emperor be? Dethroning the empress and the crown prince seemed to be reasonable. Then, would imperial concubine Lei have a chance to be the empress? Would imperial concubine Lei's child have a chance to be the crown prince? Of course. If imperial concubine Lei planned the assassination herself, then of course, she could erase all the traces, and of course, she could give the assassin a suitable opportunity in the heavily guarded imperial palace. Think about it. What a bold plan it was. The emperor was away on an expedition, and imperial concubine Lei was pregnant and waiting to give birth. At such a critical moment, the assassination that shook the eastern region happened, and the empress was involved once the assassination failed, 2 lives would be lost. Once it was discovered, dying without a burial place would be a light punishment. This was fighting for the empress's position with her life. But imperial concubine Lei died in the end, Jiang Wang said with an inexplicable emotion. So, why did Fenggu believe that the empress was the real murderer? Lin Yuxi said, because the empress, whom imperial concubine Lei wanted to frame, was definitely not someone who could be manipulated at will, let alone someone who imperial concubine Lei could scheme against. She used some means to turn imperial concubine Lei's fake death into a real death. Jiang Wang murmured. For example, she secretly smeared 10,000 spirit-frozen snow on the assassin's knife. And the one who did this was the Tian family. Lin Yuxi said sadly, I only figured everything out last night. Yes. A large part of Lin Yuxi's restoration of the case was based on speculation. In fact, there were very few things that could really be regarded as evidence, because basically all the evidence had been destroyed. But Jiang Wang had already believed it, because he had a piece of information that Lin Yuxi didn't know. That was, Jiang Wuqi had also investigated the old case 17 years ago. With his identity and resources that were far better than Uriel's, he quickly got the result. But in the end, he chose to keep silent. Why did he keep silent? Only Lin Yuxi's restoration of the case today could explain it. Because the whole assassination case was designed by imperial concubine Lei herself. It was imperial concubine Lei who was bold enough to design the assassination. But her ability was limited. She met an opponent who was far inferior to her and was beaten at her own game. In the end, it led to her own death and caused the child in her womb to be born with a cold poison. At the last moment of her life, imperial concubine Lei struggled desperately in that winter night and tried her best to save the child in her womb. Was her mood at that time despair or guilt? But in any case, her love for the child in her womb was not fake. Jiang Wuqi found out the truth, but he didn't want to criticize his stupid mother 17 years later. Even if this case was opened, it was possible to drag the empress down and create an opportunity for him to fight for the throne. When the emperor mentioned imperial concubine Lei later, it was all reminiscence. If the case was really opened, what would the emperor think? What would the emperor say? How would he treat the Lei family? So on the tombstone in the painting of all living things, there was only the dead are gone. She was already dead. What else could Jiang Wuqi say? Chapter 1399. Many people felt that the existence of the Longevity Palace was largely based on the Son of Heaven's pity and favoritism. Noble consort Lei's stupidity, greed, and presumptuousness, once made public, almost removed the foundation of the Longevity Palace's existence. Therefore, Gongsun would rather cut off his own tongue to keep the secret, because the truth was not decent for the Longevity Palace. Therefore, Fenggu didn't say a word when Jiang Wuqi was still alive, because after the death of noble consort Lei, the meaning of his life was to protect Jiang Wuqi. But Jiang Wuqi was also dead. What was the use of the Son of Heaven's love? The Son of Heaven was extremely fond of noble consort Lei, but noble consort Lei was already dead. The Son of Heaven described the pain of losing Jiang Wuqi as extremely sad, but Jiang Wuqi was also dead. Fenggu's heart was filled with hatred. He wanted the empress to be buried with noble consort Lei. It should have been like this 17 years ago. Therefore, there was a mourning hall, and she died facing the empress position. He even used the spiders to kill the empress. Therefore, he took out Lin Kuang's knife and led Lin Yuxi to participate in the old case. The whole incident, from 17 years ago to 17 years later, finally pieced together the whole picture in Jiang Wang's mind. Noble consort Lei, the empress, the Tian family, the Lei family, Jiang Wuqi, Gongsun, Fenggu. The choices of each side were so clearly presented in front of him. At this moment, Jiang Wang knew more than Lin Yuxi, and he also knew something that Lin Yuxi didn't know. It was told by a mysterious person in front of the patrol office. Lin Kuang did commit suicide. Of course, to be more precise, it should be forced to death, when Lin Kuang captured Tian Fun, it was obvious that he had already found some clues. The 10,000 spirit freezing snow on the assassin's weapon might have been applied by Tian Fun. A person like Lin Kuang certainly wouldn't commit suicide easily. Even if Tian Fun died in prison, all the evidence was erased and all the clues were against him. He would work hard to find new clues, capture new evidence, and finally see the truth. But what if someone threatened Lin Yuxi? At that time, Lin Kuang should have known what kind of shadow he was facing. He could fully understand that the other party could turn any threat into reality. If he didn't want those things to happen, he could only die. With all the clues, he fell into eternal slumber. Jiang Wang looked at Lin Yuxi and thought to himself, the glory of the blue metal was worth defending with everything he had. But only you, for you, he was willing to give up the glory of the blue metal. He was willing to commit suicide out of guilt. The weight of his father overshadowed the blue metal. Unfortunately, we don't have any evidence, Jiang Wang sighed. No, I do, Lin Yuxi said. What evidence? Jiang Wang asked. Gong Sun Yu is dead. Grandpa Wu is dead. If the case continues, more people will die. What does that mean? Lin Yuxi said with a complicated tone. They're also very afraid. That's because the environment now is different from the environment back then. The Son of Heaven has never made his stance clear, and they are also suffering from fear. Whether it is the Empress or the Tian family. They didn't know whether I had proof, or they weren't sure that I didn't have proof. That's why I do. Hearing this, Jiang Wang already understood what she meant. His expression became solemn. You told me so much today and told me the results of your investigation over the years. Just for this step? Although there is no evidence, you have already determined the truth, right? Lin Yuxi asked. If they wanted to submit it to the Political Affairs Hall and hold the Empress accountable, they naturally needed evidence. But everything they had experienced these days, the process of the destruction of all kinds of evidence, and all kinds of clues had already pieced together the truth in Jiang Wang's heart. Of course, he could only nod. Lord Jiang, I trust you. I will use everything I have to give you my last trust. Lin Yuxi took out a thin book and put it in Jiang Wang's hand. Please leave. Jiang Wang lowered his head and looked. This thin book was very old and looked like it had been flipped through many times. But because of the good material, it was not damaged. The cover of the thin book was blank and there was no name. Flipping it open, there was only one sentence on the title page. Corpses are made up of clues. The content of this thin book was Lin Kuang's research experience on corpses. It recorded in detail how to find clues in corpses. It could be said that it was the unique study of a famous arrester. He only finished half of the content when he was alive, and the latter part was added by Li Yugue. Lin Yuxi gave this thin book to Jiang Wang to make a final gamble. She planned to create the illusion that she had the key evidence so that the Empress or the Tian family would send people to kill her. Then she would leave the irrefutable evidence of who the murderer was in her corpse. Jiang Wang only needed to take this evidence to connect the whole case in one fell swoop. The person who killed Lin Yuxi was, of course, the person who wanted to cover up the truth. There are other ways, Jiang Wang said. Lin Yuxi shook her head gently. No, Arrestor Wu died because of the 10,000 spirit freezing snow. We haven't used the clues on Tyrannical Horn Island, right? The evidence of the 10,000 spirit freezing snow definitely doesn't exist now. Since the Tian family has found out that we have already investigated that step, how could they still leave clues on Tyrannical Horn Island? Lin Yuxi said, I think Gu Xing might have died. What if? Jiang Wang said. However, even he couldn't convince himself. My father found out the truth that year. 17 years later, Grandpa Wu also found the truth single-handedly. Even if I have their talent, how many years will it take me to find the evidence? What will happen after I find it? Will I live to expose those things, or will I be like them? Lin Yuxi's face was sad. She slowly shook her head and said, Moreover, if the current crown prince has already ascended to the throne at that time, what will I do? They might not do it. Then let's take a gamble on their courage. They might not send their own people to kill you. For this kind of thing, asking anyone for help is giving them a handle. How dare they ask others to do it? Sir Jiang, I know your good intentions, but I have made up my mind. If you don't want to help me, I can understand. I'll find someone else. Jiang Wang sighed. But you might not have the time to leave the evidence. Lin Yuxi was silent for a moment. How could she not know? What she imagined was only the most ideal result. And there was a great possibility that she would die as soon as the other party made a move, leaving nothing behind. But she said, let me try. The 11th prince will only die this time, and I only have this one chance. Jiang Wang looked at her fixedly and didn't speak for a while. But she suddenly cupped her hands and bowed deeply to Jiang Wang. Sir Jiang, if I can't leave enough evidence to prove the identity of the murderer, then it's my own fault. I won't blame you. If I'm lucky enough to do it, then I'll leave the rest to you. Jiang Wang held the thin book in one hand and supported her with the other, not letting her bow down. He smiled bitterly and said, if you die in vain, I won't lose anything. If you do it, I'll take the ready-made evidence to claim the credit. What kind of trouble is this? Lin Yuxi straightened up, her pair of exceptionally bright eyes staring at Jiang Wang. How many people in the world can be trusted? And how many people can I trust? After saying this, she turned around and said resolutely, please go back. She couldn't wait for another 17 years or even 100 years. She only wanted to try this one last time. If she succeeded, then she succeeded. If not, then so be it. The 4 great blue metal aristocratic families had no descendants today, so there was nothing to regret. Lin Yuxi reached out to take her medicine pestle, thinking that she should concoct a medicine, but suddenly the heavenly sea churned and the seawater gathered into the shape of a dragon, instantly taking away her control of the heavenly sea. The gentle sound of the wind brushed past her ears, and she couldn't move any of her joints. From her spine to her limbs, from her Daoyuan to her spirit, everything was seized. Then, she clearly felt a finger pointing at the back of her head. She widened her eyes, full of disbelief. Why? But her body was already slowly collapsing, and her consciousness was gradually blurring. Jiang Wang retracted his finger and supported Lin Yuxi, who had collapsed to the ground. Then he gently placed the unconscious Lin Yuxi back on the bed. He put down the bed curtain, turned around, and walked out. The famous hunters who were known as the 2 Prides had fallen into eternal slumber. Their deaths should be exchanged for a good sleep for their children. He pushed open the door, and the light from the outside suddenly shone in. Jiang Wang continued to walking in the old house that Lin Kuang had left behind. It was as if, after more than 10 years, he could feel the glory of the world's famous hunters that had shrouded this place in the past. He didn't close the bedroom door because there should be light in this room. Creak, the door of the house was pulled open. Bang! It was slammed shut again. With the sound of the door closing, Jiang Wang had already stepped out of the house. The green cloud under his feet had already shattered, and he had already crashed into a restaurant diagonally across the courtyard. He directly crashed into a private room on the 2nd floor, and with one hand he pressed down a customer who was sitting there monitoring the Lin family to the ground. Without waiting for him to explain, he slapped him, dispersing his Daoyuan, and his entire body fell out of the restaurant and landed in front of the Lin family's door. As this person fell, the green cloud under Jiang Wang's feet appeared again. He flew and landed in front of a middle-aged man who was selling candied hawthorns on the street. Sir, the middle-aged man had just opened his mouth when a hand strangled his neck, and all his remaining words were choked back. Jiang Wang casually flung this person in front of the Lin family's door, as if he was throwing a dead dog. With another tap of his foot, he moved again, his green robe fluttered, and the crowd cried out in alarm. Wherever he went, no one could escape, and no one could withstand even a single blow. Subdued figures were constantly smashed to the ground. In less than 8 breaths of time, Jiang Wang personally caught 7 hidden sentries who were monitoring the Lin family and threw them all in front of the Lin family's door. He didn't ask where these people came from or whose orders they followed. He simply shook out a prison chain and tied them together one by one, making them look like a long snake. Then, he led them like this and turned around to leave. Wherever he went, pedestrians would avoid him, and there were bewildered gazes everywhere. Of course, there must be people from the Empress and the Tian family among the people monitoring the Lin family. Moreover, these people would definitely not expose their identities. Even if they were caught, they would definitely not be able to contact the Empress or the Tian family. At the same time, there were also some people who were monitoring the case, and others who wanted to know the truth as soon as possible. There was no point in catching them. Even if they stopped for questioning now, everyone would have enough excuses to stop around the Lin family's residence. No matter how brilliant the constable was, he would not be able to find out anything wrong with them. Therefore, several people struggled, trying to explain, trying to communicate. However, Jiang Wang did not give them a chance to speak at all. He directly tied them up and took them away. He walked through the long street and passed by the frightened pedestrians. Under countless complicated gazes, he tied up a group of people and brought them to the northern Yamen. Lord Jiang, Constable Jiang. When they saw Jiang Wang's blue medal, the constables all bowed to him. Jiang Wang randomly found a familiar constable and put the prison chain in his hand. The imperial court ordered the officers to handle the case, but these people are monitoring the surroundings. I don't know what they are thinking or what they are plotting. Put them in jail and interrogate them properly. As a fourth-rank blue medal constable, there was naturally no problem for him to personally arrest a few suspects and bring them back to the northern Yamen for interrogation. The young constable was proud. I will definitely send them there. I will not let a single one of them go. He had an aura of facing death with equanimity. He held Lord Zhang's prison chain tightly and valiantly turned around to leave. He did not know what kind of danger there was in the northern Yamen. After sending these people to the northern Yamen prison, Jiang Wang did not follow them in. Instead, he turned around and left. He passed Mingdi Lane and walked on Xuanwu Street. He walked in the direction of the Qi's palace. Of course, Jiang Wang was not from the Empress or the Tian family. He would not have knocked Lin Yuxi out to betray her. It was just that the success rate of Lin Yuxi's plan was too low and the premise was death. He could not agree to it. However, Lin Yuxi's was too firm. She was already prepared to die. Even if he refused, he could not stop the execution of the plan. Lin Yuxi asked him for help not because he had to, but because she trusted him the most in Linzi. In this city, there were many people who wanted to uncover the truth and gain merit. Not to mention, she could learn the research experience of famous constables like Lin Kuang and Uriel. She could easily choose a partner among the blue medal constables. Of course, it was hard to say whether these people would reveal the truth or use it in exchange for more benefits. This was also the reason why Lin Yuxi asked Jiang Wang for help. Only Jiang Wang was completely trustworthy. However, if Jiang Wang refused, Lin Yuxi was willing to take the risk, even if the temptation of benefits was not mentioned. If Lin Yuxi asked Yang Jing to cooperate, she would not be rejected. At least in this case, Yang Jing was a reliable partner. After confirming that there was no other choice, Jiang Wang could only subdue Lin Yuxi. Then he would do it himself. The emperor met the emperor. He walked out of the Lin family, arrested all the secret guards who were monitoring the Lin family, and threw them into the prison of the northern Yamen. This matter must have been spread all over Linzi. Everyone who should know knew. At this moment, he walked directly to the palace. Everyone had to think about one question. Had Jiang Wang found out the truth? How much did he know about the important case? How much evidence did he have? And after today, how many people would be killed? Lin Yuxi's plan was to use herself as bait to force the Empress or the Tian family to send people to kill her. Then she would find a way to leave behind evidence. When all the old evidence was erased, she would use her own life to create new evidence. Jiang Wang put the bait on himself. In many people's eyes, he and Lin Yuxi had completed the last step of the case. Therefore, he no longer held back. So, he walked out of the Lin family openly, arrested Lin Yuxi, and went directly to the emperor. Now was the time to make a choice. Now was the time for the mastermind to be afraid. Did they dare to let Jiang Wang see the emperor safely? At the moment when Jiang Wang walked to the palace of Deqi with such a firm attitude. Chapter 1400. The Bluestone Palace was located in the northeast corner of Deqi's imperial palace. It was like a lone island in a sea of people, a scar of this great city. Time passed very clearly here. Sparrows perched on the high walls, pecking at the walls regardless of the season. They sharpened their beaks, just like how a swordsman sharpened his blade. A spider slowly crawled down the eaves. It had been a long time since there were any insects on the spider's web. It hung lonely and empty. The vigorous eagle spread its wings and soared through the sky. It flew past the empty Longevity Palace, then turned and flew past the Huaying Palace. In the palace, Jiang Wuyo was holding two swords in his hands. He walked around the palace and played with his swords like rain. This is his own business. Let's see what he chooses. The white-haired old woman held her halberd and stood at the side without saying a word. She had watched this prince grow up step by step. He was confident in every step he took. Swords, spears, swords, halberds, hatchets, hooks, and tridents. He wielded all kinds of weapons as if they were his arms. He stepped on the path of martial arts with the heart of the world. The eagle's cry was both near and far. It was rare for the master of Yangxin Palace to be at home. She leaned against the soft couch and supported her cheek with one hand. She lifted her silk robe and draped it over her body. Her muscles were visible. She lifted the beautiful woman's chin with one hand and smiled. They're watching the show. I'm watching the beauty. After all, they really don't know how to dream of being a fish. The eagle's feathers were like knives, cutting through the air without leaving a trace. It circled around the outer palace and flew past the Changle Palace. Then, with a backward dive, its feathers and claws suddenly disappeared, turning into a fat worm that burrowed into the clouds. If one looked closely, the cloud looked like a white lantern. In Changle Palace, the crown prince, who was trimming the flowers, suddenly stopped and sighed. I'm a god. He placed the scissors on the wooden tray held by the eunuch. His blood flowed like a river, and his flesh glowed. He turned around and was already a god. As the largest main street in North City, Xuanwu Avenue was extremely wide and long. It was always crowded with people. However, Jiang Wang strode forward with his sword in his hand. It was as if he was riding a lonely boat in the crowd. He was confident and calm. From time to time, people would stop and watch him leave. There weren't many people who knew what he was going to do, but his imposing manner was enough to convince people. This was Deqi's Tianjiao. Deqi's imperial palace was located in the middle of Linzi, with 3 layers inside and outside. The outermost layer of the outer palace occupied the widest area. The Purple Hall, where the crown prince lived, Changle Palace, where the 3rd princess lived, and even the Greenstone Palace, where the dethroned crown prince was imprisoned, were all here. When Jiang Wang reached the gate of the outer palace, this lonely journey came to an end. From the northern Yamen to the imperial palace, there was no wind or waves along the way. There wasn't even a single startled horse. It was as if Linzi had always been this peaceful. Jiang Wang calmly stopped in front of the intertwining ceremonial blades and cupped his hands towards the palace guard. Qingyang Town's 3rd-rank Golden Melon warrior, Jiang Wang, greets the emperor. Please pass on the message. The leader of the palace guard stood solemnly like a stone statue and ordered his subordinates to leave in a hurry. The sky was high, the clouds were quiet, and there were thousands of palaces. Qigong was dignified and quiet. At this time, everything seemed to be as still as the palace. Those magnificent stories were all silent in the passage of time. The empress or the Tian family of Dezhe. They dared to kill Gong Sunyu in Biwu County. They dared to kill Yuri overseas. Killing Yang Jing, who was not an official, should not be a big deal. It was not impossible to kill Lin Yuxi if they were forced to. But they did not dare to kill Jiang Qingyang in Linzi. No matter how scared they were, they did not dare to do so. If one wanted to ask, what did Jiang Wang win in the 2 years he worked so hard in Qi? This was the answer. Not long after, the palace guard who passed on the message hurriedly returned with a eunuch. It was not Xiao whom Jiang Wang was familiar with, but a tall eunuch with a cold face. He did not introduce himself. He only said to Jiang Wang, "The emperor wants to see you. Please come this way." Then he led the way in front. Jiang Wang did not try to curry favor with him. He lifted his feet and followed behind. Behind the palace gate, there was a high platform named Soldier Extermination Platform. There were a few rows of ancient weapon racks on the platform. The atmosphere was heavy and solemn. To enter the palace, all the saints had to disarm their weapons here. The evil energy was strong, but it was all suppressed on this platform. Jiang Wang walked past with his sword hanging high. The palace guard in front of the platform did not stop him. The eunuch who led the way also did not say anything. In the past, when the Yellow River was first, the emperor allowed him to bring his sword to court. The place where the emperor wanted to see the emperor was Lu Palace. After the emperor left court, he often cultivated in this palace. To see Jiang Wang here could be said to be a form of intimacy. When Jiang Wang stepped into the hall, the emperor was sitting cross-legged on the golden stone platform. There were a total of 9 coiled dragon pillars, standing on 3 sides of the stone platform. There were like 3 high walls protecting the emperor. The coiled dragon held a pearl, and the pearl gave birth to jade smoke. The smoke was constantly changing. Sometimes it was mountains and seas, sometimes it was people. In front of the stone platform, only Han Ling stood alone. When one did not pay attention, he did not seem to exist. But when one wanted to find him, he never left one's sight. This ability was not something normal people could compare to. The eunuch who led the way had already left outside the hall. Jiang Wang bowed and wanted to bow. The emperor waved his hand. There is no need to be so formal. At this moment, the Son of Heaven was wearing a loose robe. He seemed less serious and more casual. He covered his sleeves and looked down at Jiang Wang from the stone platform. "Qing Yangzi, why are you here?" Jiang Wang stood up straight. He did not dare to look directly at the emperor, but his voice was loud and clear. "I am Feng Gu, the chief eunuch of Longevity Palace. I remember that you are supervising the handling of this case." The emperor's voice fell. It was gentle but dignified. Could it be that there is something wrong with the investigation of the case? Jiang Wang said, "I supervised the handling of the case and learned something from it. This is a serious matter, and I do not dare to hide it from the emperor. Therefore, I came to see you. Although I overstepped my duty, I am loyal to the emperor." The emperor said, "Since this is a serious matter, why not publicly present it to the Political Affairs Hall, but privately?" As soon as this question was asked, Jiang Wang's heart tightened. As soon as they met, the emperor pointed out his duty in this case. On the surface, the emperor was asking him if there were any problems with Zheng Shangming and Lin Yuxi's handling of the case. Secretly, he was asking him if it was against the rules to enter the palace alone for this case. He answered with, "This is a serious matter, but I am loyal to the emperor." The emperor then asked him why not publicly present it to the Political Affairs Hall. This was already expressing his dissatisfaction. To be honest, the reason why Jiang Wang made a scene in front of the Lin family and sent all the people who were monitoring the Lin family to the Northern Yamen prison was to deliberately make a scene. From the patrol manor in the capital city, he walked straight to the imperial palace without avoiding or taking a detour. Who did not know that he was going to see the emperor today? In fact, his act of privately meeting the emperor achieved the effect of part of the official document. To a certain extent, he put the emperor on the stage. If the court and the public thought that Jiang Wang came to see the emperor with the evidence of the assassination of imperial concubine Lei, then the emperor should give the world an explanation. Therefore, the emperor asked him why he did not directly hand the evidence to the Political Affairs Hall. Since he wanted to make it public, then he should make it public. If he wanted to make a big deal out of it, then he should make a bigger deal out of it. However, with Jiang Qingyang's small body, could he bear the consequences of making a big deal out of it? Jiang Wang bowed his head and said, "Because I don't have the key evidence, I can't convince the doctors and can't present it to the public." Even though the Emperor of Deqi had always hidden his emotions deep in the sea and rarely showed them, at this moment, he sneered. Then how will you meet me? Use your fist to show your loyalty to your emperor? At times, the emperor was also very humorous. However, the word loyal to the emperor could be used humorously in a sense because it was not reliable. This was a very dangerous signal. Jiang Wang did not show any fear and only said sincerely, "Your Majesty wants to see the emperor because I want to tell you a story." The emperor did not speak. Thus, Jiang Wang stood in the hall and slightly sorted out his emotions. He opened his mouth and said, "Your Majesty once traveled beyond the heavens and occasionally saw strange stories. Beyond the heavens, there was a floating continent where hundreds of races were fighting and the flames of war never stopped. In the middle of the continent, there was a country that was stronger than its neighbors. The emperor was talented and wise, and his political and military skills were the best in history. One year, the border officials rebelled, and the emperor personally led the troops. At that time, the previous crown prince was imprisoned, and the new crown prince had just been appointed. The emperor's favorite concubine was pregnant and wanted to fight for the position of empress. Thus, he used assassins to kill the empress. When the empress investigated, she secretly ordered the foreign officials to use a strange poison, causing the emperor's favorite concubine to die at the sight of blood. After the concubine died, the dragon child in her womb was born. The emperor pitied it and loved it very much. This child was born with a deficiency. When he was still in his mother's womb, the poison had already entered his marrow. However, he was born with a great plan. At that time, he advanced with a sick body and had the hearts of the people. He sent people to investigate that year and finally found out the truth. However, he did not say anything. When Jiang Wang said this, he cupped his hands and bowed to the emperor. "Your Majesty, do you know why this prince did not take revenge for his mother and did not take revenge for himself?" On the golden stone platform, the emperor was silent for a long time before he said, "What do you want to say?" However, Jiang Wang did not take the opportunity to let it go. Instead, he asked, "The people of the Void Continent are widely discussed. Some say, this prince cares about the world and can't bear the turmoil in the imperial court, so he endured his hatred and kept his mouth shut. Others say, the enemy is too powerful, so he can't fight head-on. He has to plan slowly." "Emperor, who do you think is right?" "What do you think?" the emperor asked. There was no joy or sorrow in his voice. "I think," Jiang Wang said respectfully, "Monarch, you love and pity him." He loved and respected the monarch. As for why he did not say anything, that's all. It's not that complicated. He's just a child who grew up alone and did not want to lose his father's love. Jiang Qingyang. The emperor's voice was high and remote, but dignified. Is it the duty of a subject to take things for granted? It was impossible to tell whether the emperor was moved or not from his voice. The words "take things for granted" were really dangerous. However, at this point, Jiang Wang could only brace himself and continue. "I was investigating the Longevity Palace's Fenggu case and was fortunate to see a mural in the palace. It was hand-painted by the 11th prince, and I loved it very much. I thought the emperor couldn't miss it. The mural in the palace garden is called All Living Beings Face to Face. There's a lone grave in the mural with only 4 words inscribed on the steel. Please take a look, Emperor." At this moment, Jiang Wang still had his head lowered and his body slightly bowed. He could only see his boots and the golden stone steps in front of him. Of course, even if he raised his head, he couldn't look directly at the emperor. He didn't know if the emperor was looking at it or not, or what method he was using. However, he could faintly feel that on the golden stone platform in front of him, a great power was spreading. He could only sense the edges of the fluctuations, but he was already intimidated by the vastness and majesty. After a long time, the emperor's voice fell. "You came here just to tell me a story?" Jiang Wang said, "Your Majesty personally appointed me to supervise the case. I came for the truth of the case. I've finished listening to your story." Jiang Wang could completely feel that he was being watched by the mighty ruler of the world. Although the emperor didn't pour out any pressure and didn't even have a trace of emotion mixed in, his status and power alone were enough to crush the hearts of those who were being watched. and that magnificent voice that seemed to resonate with the entire palace slowly fell. Now, let's talk about your case. Jiang Wang straightened his back and only slightly lowered his eyes. Today, I brought 3 cases to see the emperor. The emperor didn't comment. Standing in front of the stone platform, the corner of Han Ling's eyes twitched. There were actually 3 cases? This Jiang Qingyang was really arrogant and reckless. What a pity. Although he thought it was a pity in his heart, there was no expression on his face. Jiang Wang had already said loudly, "The first case is the death of Longevity Palace's chief eunuch Fenggu." Han Ling held his breath and then heard. Under the supervision of the Deputy Inspection Inspector Lin Yuxi, it was confirmed that Fenggu committed suicide. He hung himself from the beam of the morning hall without any last words. Presumably, he died for his master. Fenggu's suicide was not wrong to say that he died for his master, and his hatred and accusation against the Empress could be known by anyone who had a deep understanding of the case. There was no need to say it out loud. The Emperor's voice was heard. Since he committed suicide for his master, he should be buried with him. What about the second case? His voice was calm, like the clouds and rain falling, the cycle of nature. The second case is the murder of the old Longevity Palace's subordinate, Gong Sun Yu. Jiang Wang said loudly. He lived in seclusion in Biwu County, studying behind closed doors and never went out. In his early years, he talked a lot, so he cut off his own tongue. He lived in seclusion and stood aloof from worldly affairs. But a few days ago, he was killed by evil people. I request the Emperor to order a thorough investigation of this case, to comfort the 11th prince in heaven. Obviously, the Emperor didn't expect that the second case Jiang Wang wanted to mention was this, especially since Jiang Wang had basically pointed out that Gong Sun Yu cut off his tongue to keep the secret. He was so loyal to Jiang Wuqi, but he was still killed so easily after Jiang Wuqi's death. If the 11th prince was in heaven, how could he be at ease? After a moment of silence, the Emperor's voice was heard. There should be an explanation for this. This sentence meant that the person who killed Gong Sun Yu would be found out in some way. Of course, it wouldn't involve anything deeper behind the scenes. This case was still stopped at the appropriate place. In this huge Delu palace, there were only 3 people, including Jiang Wang. The 3 of them knew that the third case, which hadn't been mentioned yet, was the main point of this trip. Even Han Ling, who had always been like a statue, couldn't help but look up at Jiang Wang. He looked at the young man who was directly facing the Emperor of Deqi. Jiang Wang said loudly, "The third case I want to report is the suicide of a famous arrester, Lin Kuang, 17 years ago." Han Ling heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, but then he sighed for no reason. Author's note: after all, some people really have deer, but they don't know that they dream of being fish all day long. Huang Tingjian, one of the 7 miscellaneous poems. Chapter 1401. Lin Kuang committed suicide out of fear of responsibility. This is already the conclusion of Abaya. In the Deer Palace, the Emperor sat on the golden stone platform. He still didn't show any emotion. He only asked, "After so many years, you want to reverse the case for him?" Lord Lin Kuang did commit suicide back then. There is no doubt about this. But the reason for suicide can't be fear of responsibility. Jiang Wang said, the red kiln case, the golden thread case, the purple satin case. These famous major cases, some of which were difficult to handle, some of which were complicated and dangerous, were all solved by Lin Kuang himself. When I flipped through the files and saw the cases, I was often dumbfounded and couldn't help but marvel. If Lin Kuang was a fearful person, he wouldn't have been able to solve these major cases. How could the number 1 super arrester since the creation of the blue metal be fearful of responsibility? To be able to recite the famous major cases that Lin Kuang solved in the past, it was enough to show the effort that Jiang Wang spent in private. He held a thick file and studied it repeatedly. Anyone who had read these dossiers would have a rough idea of what kind of person Lin Kuang was. He continued, "The suspect died in the prison. Isn't it the responsibility of the guard? Isn't it the responsibility of the prison guard? Why did Tian Fen die in the prison, but Lin Kuang committed suicide out of fear of responsibility? Now it's said that Lin Kuang caught the wrong Tian Fen, but when Tian Fen died, he was still suspicious. It was only because he died that they couldn't continue to investigate. How could they directly conclude that he caught the wrong person? I flipped through the records and asked the people in charge of the case. I found that the voices of caught the wrong person and there was something wrong with Tian Fen were actually half and half. But after Lin Kuang died, it seemed that everyone admitted that he caught the wrong person. But how could there be such a logic in the world? Just because Lin Kuang died and couldn't speak for himself, there was no need to investigate the people who were still alive and could make a conclusion. This is unfair to the dead. The emperor didn't speak. Jiang Wang then said, "The 11th prince had a posthumous writing. It was the last piece of writing he wrote before he died. He left it to me." The emperor was indeed interested. He asked, "What did he write?" Jiang Wang replied, "The characters read, 'Heaven did not abandon me, the Qi, and gave birth to me, Jiang Wuqi.'" The emperor was silent for a while. Apparently, he was also caught up in the emotions of this sentence. Jiang Wang continued, "Why not abandon the Qi?" He threw out such a grand question and answered himself. This subject thinks that it means not abandoning the subjects of Qi, not abandoning the people of Qi. Those who are loyal to their duty should not be abandoned. Those who have contributed to the country should not be abandoned. Anyone who fought for the Qi, regardless of their age or ability, should not be abandoned by the Qi. When the 11th prince was around, the only reason he gave the fake Zhang a chance was because the Qi did not forget his loyal subjects. Similarly, Your Highness had repeatedly appointed Lin Yuxi to handle cases when he was alive. This also shows that our Qi does not forget a famous official like Lin Kuang. Although Lin Kuang committed suicide, he died because of rumors, fear, and injustice, and not because he was afraid of punishment. Jiang Wang's voice was loud and clear. He was very straightforward, so his tone was very strong. During Lin Kuang's tenure in Beia, he led and solved 137 cases, big and small. Every file is recorded, and the clues are detailed, and the evidence is sufficient. This person had guided and assisted the younger generation of green card masters in solving countless cases. He created 44 unique blue metal methods to solve cases. He set many rules, such as requiring 2 or more people to supervise an autopsy. These rules are still in use today. He never showed any favoritism when he was alive. After his death, his actions were thoroughly investigated, and there was nothing to blame him for. This kind of talent should not be abandoned by the country. This subject asks Your Majesty to review Lin Kuang's suicide and clear his name. Let the world know that the emperor does not abandon the world. The emperor only asked, "Minister Jiang, if Lin Kuang did not commit suicide out of fear of punishment, then why did he commit suicide?" Han Ling could not help but pay some attention. Jiang Wang's words were so beautiful that he was secretly surprised. Using Jiang Wuqi's last words to move the emperor's feelings was already a clever move. However, Han Ling understood that just feelings alone could not affect the emperor. What really had a chance to move the emperor was Jiang Wuqi's tolerance of the world, who said that Jiang Qingyang was an ignorant man without brains. At the very least, this sense of propriety was born with sensitivity and could be said to be extremely precise. The emperor's question at this time was also very crucial. Lin Kuang's matter could be solved, but it could not be solved from the empress's perspective. In Han Ling's view, Jiang Wang's next answer was the key to solving this case. Jiang Wang said loudly, "This subject has already said that Lin Kuang died because of rumors. It was those malicious people who spread rumors and came to conclusions that forced Lin Kuang to his death. He was loyal to the blue metal cause and could not bear the damage to his reputation. He could not sit by and watch the blue metal be humiliated, so he committed suicide to prove his innocence. Who would have thought that he would not be able to defend himself after death, and instead made the rumors true? This is a regret of 20 years. Your Majesty, please do not let this regret last 100 years. Only Jiang Wang's voice echoed in the huge Delu Palace. This voice was so young. In the history of this powerful empire, young voices always sounded again and again. Sigh. The emperor actually sighed. His voice finally sounded from the stone platform. Jiang Qing, we only found out today that you were so capable of handling cases. You know the Blue Metal's methods of handling cases like the back of your hand, and you're familiar with the Blue Metal's history like the back of your hand. Your sense of propriety is correct, your foresight is good, and your methods are excellent. Speaking of which, Commandant Zheng will ascend to godhood in a few days, and the position of Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office is vacant. Are you willing to take this position for us? Jiang Wang's back instantly broke out in a cold sweat. If anyone thought that they could control the emperor's thoughts, they would not be far from death. Zheng Shangming had previously used the position of Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office as a bargaining chip to negotiate with Jiang Wang. The Zheng father and son had dared to operate this matter, and of course, the emperor had tacitly agreed. Jiang Wang's rejection of Zheng Shangming could actually be said to have rejected the emperor. However, when Jiang Wang was talking about Lin Kuang's case, the emperor changed the topic and mentioned the position of Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office. The emperor's implication was that Jiang Wang knew how to act properly, so he obviously knew how to be an official. Then what reason did Jiang Wang have to refuse? Of course I am willing. It is Jiang Wang's honor to be able to be loyal to the country and share the emperor's worries. Jiang Wang did not say anything else and expressed his loyalty first. But Jiang Wang's thoughts turned rapidly, and he said seriously, "It is a pity that my cultivation speed is too fast. I am afraid that I will ascend to godhood in a few days." Hearing this, Han Ling's lips trembled. Who told this guy to be so full of himself? How could he say something like that? How many people were stuck at the end of their lifespan, unable to obtain a golden body and jade marrow? But Jiang Qingyang was worried that he would not be able to hold on for more than a few days. However, when he thought about it carefully, he actually felt that it made sense. With this peerless Tianjiao's cultivation talent, godhood was no longer an obstacle. It was only a matter of when he perfected the fourth floor, that was when he would be able to cross over. He had just suppressed his emotions when he heard Jiang Wang say again, "The Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office is an important position in the country. It is crucial and concerns the security of the country. How can I be the third master of the Capital Inspection Office? I'm not a lucky official. My heart is for the sake of the country. It is easy for me to become the Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office, but difficult for the country to find one. Your Majesty, please reconsider." His words were very clear, and the pros and cons were even more clear. You have a golden mouth and jade words, insisting that I become the Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office. It is very simple for me to take that position. However, the Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office is an important position. Without 3 to 5 years of determination, how can I do my job well? It is impossible for a peerless Tianjiao like me to wander around before godhood for 3 to 5 years. Jiang Wang said that he was willing, but when it came to the key issues, he said that his talent did not allow him to do so, and that the time was not suitable. If the Son of Heaven uses me as the Commandant of the Capital Inspection Office, it is probably irresponsible of the position, especially that sentence about being a lucky official. It was like he was asking the Son of Heaven, if I am not a lucky official, does the Son of Heaven want to open the door for me? However, what kind of person was the Son of Heaven? How could he be controlled by a few words? He actually looked at Jiang Wang and directly asked, "Are you not willing to be loyal to me?" Such a direct question was not like the Son of Heaven style. It could be seen that his mood today was not as calm as before. As for this question, of course, his answer would not waver at all. Jiang Wang did not show his loyalty in fear and trepidation. Instead, he asked righteously, "Since entering Qi, I have always been loyal to my job. I have done my best for the country, fought for the country, and fought for Qi. No matter when or where, I have never lowered the prestige of the Qi. Are all these not loyal to the Son of Heaven? Probably because the previous sentence was already open. The Son of Heaven asked even more directly, Jiang Qingyang, can't you see how much I want to nurture you? Is it really so difficult for you to take charge of the Capital Inspection Office? Since the Son of Heaven asked so directly, Jiang Wang did not have the right to beat around the bush. When he heard that, he said solemnly, although Jiang Wang is slow, if it is just handling cases, it is not too difficult. There are many talents in the patrol manor, and I only need to appoint people based on their merits, do things impartially, and punish clearly. Naturally, I will not be too bad. Your Majesty praises me for being careful, but if I take charge of the Capital Inspection Office, I will be the first to not be careful. I'm terrified, but I still want to ask, does Your Majesty need such a commandant of the Capital Inspection Office? Preposterous. Jiang Wang took a step back and lowered his head. I will die 10,000 times. I see that you're not afraid of death. Son of Heaven said calmly. I am afraid of death, very afraid of death. I have already sworn that I do not want to experience the feeling of my life being controlled by someone else. But Your Majesty, I want to ask you, Jiang Wang asked with the greatest sincerity, is loyalty only when there is no bottom line? Is a person who has lost himself really reliable? The reason Jiang Wang is because Jiang Wang has always done what Jiang Wang should do and does not go against his conscience. If my conscience can be violated, if I can abandon myself, then how can the law bind me? How can morality bind me? How can loyalty, righteousness, honor, and shame bind me? The Son of Heaven sneered. Loyalty to the Emperor is going against your conscience. Jiang Wang replied, I have been reading history recently and heard that during the Qi dynasty, the Emperor tasted all kinds of delicacies in the world. One day, he laughed and said that he did not know how good human flesh was. There was an imperial chef named Iya. When he heard this, he immediately cooked and served the Emperor. When the Emperor passed by Iya's residence, he took a look at Iya's wife. That night, Iya served his wife on the Emperor's bed. It can be said that everything goes according to the Emperor's heart. Is this a loyal subject? But what happened in the end? When the Emperor Qi was seriously injured, Iya, who was the prime minister, killed him. That was how Emperor Wu restored the country. If a person loses himself, what will he do? What will he ask for? Jiang Wang said loudly, It is because I'm trustworthy, righteous, and believe in justice that I can be a loyal subject. Trustworthy, righteous, and believe in justice. You have been reading history recently. The Son of Heaven reached out and patted the stone table, saying, I only know that you, Jiang Qingyang, are good at fighting, but I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable. Jiang Wang did not know whether the Son of Heaven's words were praise or sarcasm. But fortunately, he seemed to have passed this hurdle. I am afraid. It is just that the Son of Heaven humbly accepts my advice. Although I am not sensitive, unwise, and ignorant, I have to speak my mind. Ha ha! The Son of Heaven actually laughed. Not sensitive, unwise, and ignorant. Today, you have finally spoken the truth to me. It was of course a good thing that the Son of Heaven could laugh. But these words, it was really hurting his self-esteem. However, Jiang Wang could only say pitifully, Your Majesty, I dare not speak nonsense in front of the Son of Heaven. That's enough. The Son of Heaven waved his hand and bowed slightly. The 3 cases you mentioned today, I approve. You don't want to be the commandant of the Northern Yamen? I also approve. How will you repay me? Jiang Wang said frankly, Tianjiao of Qi is better than Tianjiao of the world. The Son of Heaven turned his head to look at Han Ling in front of the stone table and smiled. The young people of Qi are very ambitious. He turned his head to look at Jiang Wang and said, I approve. Jiang Wang clasped his hands and said, Thank you, Son of Heaven. The Son of Heaven was about to wave his hand and ask him to leave, but he looked at him and said, Is there anything else? Your Majesty's eyes are as bright as torches. Your Majesty's heart is as bright as a candle. Jiang Wang forced himself to flatter the Son of Heaven, then said, "I would like to invite you, Son of Heaven. I would like to leave the country and go to Chu to make an appointment with all my friends in the mountain and sea region." The Son of Heaven snorted coldly. "You want to run away after causing trouble? I have your Majesty's protection. How could trouble me? Besides, Chi is a sunny day. How can there be trouble? I do have an appointment with a friend, Zhuo Guangshu of the Zhuo family of Chu, and I have an appointment first." "That's enough." The Son of Heaven impatiently stopped him. "It's a good thing for young people to go out and see the heroes of the world." Jiang Wang quickly bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Then he straightened up and was about to leave. "Wait." The Son of Heaven stopped him. Jiang Wang stood still respectfully and waited for the Son of Heaven to speak. The Son of Heaven smiled. "You like to read, don't you?" Suddenly his smile disappeared. Han Ling bowed and responded. The Son of Heaven said, "Bring a set of history, sword chiseling the sea here, and give it to Qing Yangzi to read." He then said to Jiang Wang, "You are a book lover. Study hard and don't slack off. When you come back, I will check it. If you can't recite it backwards, I will remember your crime of deceiving the emperor." The Son of Heaven said this with a smile and was very amiable. Jiang Wang felt the emperor's great kindness and said emotionally, "I will not disappoint your Majesty." Unlike Jiang Wang, who is ignorant and incompetent, Han Ling was secretly speechless. The history sword chiseling the sea written by the great sage of the Diligent Academy, Sima Hung, was an imperial masterpiece. It was said to have written the history of all countries. It was a most complete historical masterpiece that recorded the history of all countries since the New Era. It was voluminous and had millions of words. Millions of words. How could he recite it backwards? Not many Confucian scholars in the Diligent Academy could do it, and Jiang Qingyang's face was full of happiness. He went out with complicated feelings. Not long after, Han Ling came back with a storage box and handed it to Jiang Wang. He didn't forget to remind him, "You don't need to return the storage box." Although Jiang Wang didn't understand why a storage box was needed for a mere book, after thinking about it, perhaps this was the extravagance of the imperial family. He reached out and took it. "Thank you for your trouble, eunuch." He then bowed to the Son of Heaven. "Thank you, Your Majesty. All right, you may leave." The Son of Heaven returned to his emotionless tone. Jiang Wang bowed again in a well-behaved manner, turned around, and left. He wasn't afraid of studying. After all, he was also a keen and studious person. Only Yun Che at this moment was able to see the light of day. P.S. Here is the history, using part of the story of Iya cooking. But this is not the case. Chapter 1402. After Jiang Wang left, Delu Hall was silent for a long time. The emperor's voice sounded, "Take down the mural and hang it in Donghua Pavilion. I'll look at it every day." Only one sentence, only one sentence. Han Ling lowered his head and left with the order. A eunuch kept a sufficient distance and led the way. His footsteps stepped on the huge stone bricks without making any sound. They were used to the cautious crowd and lived humbly in the great palace. Jiang Wang walked at a leisurely pace with an extraordinary bearing. With every step, tap, 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 walking through the majestic and luxurious palace, with a green robe and a sword in his hand, he walked calmly. Who wouldn't call him a handsome young man? However, when his footsteps echoed alone in the huge palace and fell on his heart like a drum, Jiang Wang couldn't help but think, back then, the emperor, did he know the truth about the assassination of imperial concubine Lei? He even walked all the way from Xuanwu Street to the palace. The road was calm, but how turbulent was there behind the scenes? Was it the emperor's warning to some people? The position of the crown prince was related to the foundation of the country. In the 38th year of Yuan Feng, the former crown prince was imprisoned, the new crown prince was appointed, and the rebellion of Duke Lulan was quelled. From the perspective of the emperor, imperial concubine Lei set up a trap and stabbed herself. Her death was not regrettable. Empress, he took advantage of the situation and killed with a borrowed knife. Although it was a counterattack, it was hard to absolve herself from blame. Afterward, in order to cover up the truth, she forced Lin Kuang to kill, which was an even more unforgivable crime. The Tian family of Days did things for Empress He. They were suspected of fawning on the crown prince and intervening in the fight for the throne. Their evil was hard to hide. If the truth was revealed back then, what would the result be? First of all, Empress He would definitely be abolished. If the position of Empress was suddenly empty, how much competition would it cause? This kind of competition was beyond anyone's control, including the emperor himself, because there was only one position of Empress, and there were too many people eyeing that position. It was not a position that could be taken by just anyone. More importantly, if Empress He was abolished, the crown prince would be abolished too. But within a few years, the crown prince had been deposed and reinstated. Just this alone was enough to shake the foundation of the country. Moreover, it was during the period when Duke Lolan's rebellion had just been quelled. Furthermore, the Tian family of Days had always been one of the top families in Qi. They had a strong foundation in both military and politics. They were also a part of Qi's strength. At that time, if we were to hold them accountable, it would be tantamount to cutting off our own flesh when the country was in turmoil. Would Qi, who had just quelled the chaos caused by Duke of Lulan, be suitable to depose the Empress, the Crown Prince, and hold the Tian family accountable? The dethroned Crown Prince in the Greenstone Palace had only been in there for 3 years. The aftermath had yet to subside. The Emperor had too many reasons to remain silent back then. Actually, thinking about it carefully, the current Crown Prince had been in the Eastern Palace for so many years. Why was he still so cautious? After being the Crown Prince for so many years, he had yet to be recognized as the future ruler of the Qi. After being the Crown Prince for so many years, he had also built the Huaying Palace, the Heart-Nurturing Palace, and the Longevity Palace. Was there any influence from that incident back then? Think again. The Qi had 9 soldiers, and the Tian family of the Zhe did not have a single army. In the political affairs hall, the Tian family of the Zhe did not even have a seat. This was one of the top aristocratic families in Qi. They had opened up 2 islands overseas and were not inferior to any other aristocratic families. Their participation in the highest authority in Qi was too weak. Even Marquis Gaochang, Tian Shili, and Xian Huaibua, Yu Yongqi, were directly stripped and whipped by the emperor during the ceremony not long ago. Xian Huaibua was whipped. So be it. Marquis Gaochang was in a high position. If the emperor had already known the truth back then, to a certain extent, he had shelved the case for so many years. It could also be seen as him giving Jiang Wuqi face. If the case was not made public, imperial concubine, Lei, could still be the beloved concubine of the emperor. Jiang Wuqi could still be the emperor's most beloved son. If the case was made public, imperial concubine Lei would have brought it upon herself. Jiang Wuqi would be the son of the guilty concubine. Imperial concubine Lei was bold, but after all, Jiang Wuqi was innocent. But despite so many reasons to support it, despite so many things that could be analyzed, Jiang Wang was still not sure if the emperor knew the truth back then. These analyses were all under the premise of assumptions. And the emperor's heart was as unpredictable as the sea. But at least one thing was clear. Today, Jiang Wang was walking on an invisible line as if he was treading on thin ice. In a situation where there was an abyss on both sides, he gave everyone the greatest explanation he could give. And how could this so-called appropriate limit not be drawn by the Son of Heaven? The emperor did not say anything, but the line was clearly there. It was true that Jiang Wang had been impassioned and honest in the Deer Palace, but did he dare to touch that line? Did he dare to mention the Empress? He could only talk about the Fenggu case, the Gongsenyu case, and the Lin Kuang case. He gave an explanation to Yang Jing. He gave an explanation to Lin Yuxi. What he had promised, he had done. As for really revealing the truth of the assassination of imperial concubine Lei to the world, he could not do it. It was not a problem of missing evidence. Under the premise that he had already seen the truth, it would not be harder to find the corresponding evidence than Uriel's efforts in the past 17 years. Jiang Wang was confident that he could find more evidence. But that was it. What he did today was already the limit. Or rather, it was the limit that the emperor allowed. In these days of turbulence, so many people had died, and so many things had happened. So many people had thrown themselves into it, stirring up ripples. Only the emperor sat in the depths of the palace, doing nothing and saying nothing. But everything was within Tianzi's silent line of sight. It did not exceed the limit. 17 years ago, he let it go lightly. 17 years later, to what extent? It was up to the emperor. Everyone could only struggle within the limits set by the emperor. Whether it was Bea, Jiang Wang, the palace masters, or even the current empress. Just like this great and magnificent palace city. Although it was silent. However, it was a constant reminder that Son of Heaven Qi was the only person with the highest authority in this great empire. So Jiang Wang said that if he wanted to serve in Bea, he wanted to be a commandant of Bea who did not know how to act appropriately. But the emperor naturally refused. He did not give him a chance to be impartial, but gave him freedom. The towering palace city gradually left behind. Under the complicated eyes of people, Jiang Wang walked through the capital city, walked back to Yawang Lane, and returned to his mansion. Oh, you're going to chew now? You entered the palace aggressively, and then ran away as soon as you came back? Cheng Gongsheng occupied his yard again and sneered discontentedly. Then why didn't you run faster? Why did you come back to pack? What sort of pack in your house? I brought all the valuable things. Jiang Wang stopped packing and looked back angrily. Chongxin fat. Your words are too hurtful. Zhongshuan Sheng stood there, his entire body almost filling up the door. He snorted and said, Isn't this stabbing the lungs? What does it have to do with the lungs? Cheng Gung Sheng sneered. The lungs belong to metal in the 5 elements. It's most suitable for you to hurt. Jiang Wang was speechless. He casually took some commonly used tea leaves and medicine and was too lazy to pack. After all, Cheng Gongsheng was telling the truth. After putting away the storage box, he turned and walked to Cheng Gongsheng, stretched out his hand, and said, Give me some travel expenses. The second boss of the Daxing Chamber of Commerce is rarely at home all year round. Cheng Gongsheng rolled his eyes. While complaining, he still touched the storage box. You don't listen to my priceless advice and want the truth. Do you understand that the Tian family can't do our overseas business just because they want to? Yes, the Son of Heaven supported you, but you have once again exhausted the Son of Heaven's patience. And have you ever thought about Changle Palace? Do you have to make things difficult for the Crown Prince? You should use your brain to think occasionally. Don't use it all for cultivation. Jiang Wang coaxed. Okay, Brother Sheng, I've already learned my lesson. I'm just avoiding trouble. The situation is urgent. Cheng Gung Sheng took out a bag of 10 primordial stones. After thinking for a while, he put a few back and said, Come back as soon as the dust settles. Don't go to Chu and cause trouble, right? That's other people's territory. I understand. Brother Sheng, I'll remember your priceless advice. Jiang Wang said in a pleasant tone. He took the primordial stones and stuffed them into his storage box. Then, he became spirited again and took the initiative to cut off the conversation. He said straightforwardly, Let's go. Then, he really did not say goodbye to anyone and left just like that. When Lin Yuxi opened his eyes, everything before him was still dark. Thinking that it was probably night, she instinctively got up and opened the bed curtain. Then, she noticed that the door was open and light came in from outside. It was daybreak. As if she had slept for a long time, she was in a trance for a while. Then, the memory before she fainted came back. Jiang Wang. Lin Yuxi looked down at her wrists. There were no shackles. Her body was also in good condition. She was not injured and the shackles were gone. And she confirmed again that she was indeed in her own home and safe. Then, she suddenly stood up and ran out of the door. It was definitely not a short distance from the old house of the Lin family to Yawang Lane. Lin Yuxi walked on the busy street. She did not know why, but she was still in a trance. She had already used her own method to confirm that the people she had discovered who were watching her seemed to have all disappeared. She could not help but wonder if it was all a dream. She did not tell Jiang Wang about the plan. She did not go to the autopsy that day. She did not pick up her father's knife at the door. Grandpa Wu did not die. Of course, Jiang Wang did not knock her out, but it was not a dream. Lin Yuxi sensed his own body and obtained clues about the truth from it. She confirmed everything. She quickened her pace, walking in the crowd, observing everyone's expression and behavior, inferring their mood and occupation, and guessing what they were going to do next. This was the game she used to do most often. Of course, she was not interested in it today. She was only thinking, what did Jiang Wang want to do? She stopped her somewhat anxious pace. She had arrived at the Jiang mansion. It was not the first time Lin Yuxi came to the Jiang mansion. Every time she came to the mansion of this new noble in Linzi, it was more dignified than the last time. Of course, it was because of the rich and fat young master Zheng Genjia. I want to see Jiang Wang, she said directly to the doorman. Maybe it was because she looked a little bad, which made people feel a little oppressed. The doorman went to pass the message timidly. Lin Yuxi thought about it and controlled her emotions. Not long after, the butler of the Jiang mansion came out to welcome her. He was just an ordinary person. He was not a transcendent being, but he was neither servile nor overbearing in front of Lin Yuxi. Sir, unfortunately, Master has gone out. Gone out? Lin Yuxi looked into his eyes and confirmed that he was not evading. She asked again, when will he be back? I don't know about that. The butler said, it's not up to me to decide when Lord Zhu will come back. Where did he go? You must be joking. Will Lord Zhu report to me where he goes? Jiang Wang had gone far away. He probably left in a hurry. Lin Yuxi quickly made a judgment in her heart. Then, she felt a kind of emotion, which she didn't know if it was relief or disappointment, faintly lingering in her heart. At this moment, a man's voice sounded from the side. Jiang Wang is not here. It was a man in black clothes who walked over. His temperament was very cold and solemn, and there was obvious fatigue between his eyebrows. The butler of the Jiang mansion replied, Master Yang, Lord Zhu is indeed not in the mansion now. Do you have any words for him? Yang Jing. Just as this name appeared in Lin Yuxi's mind, another voice came from afar, hurriedly from behind. Deputy Lin, I've finally found you. It was Zheng Xiangming's voice. When Lin Yuxi turned around, his expression was calm. What can I do for you, Lord Zheng? There's no need. Yang Jing said to the butler of the Jiang mansion and turned to leave. Zheng Xiangming hurried over. Before he could speak to Lin Yuxi, he raised his hand again. Hey, Master Yang, please wait. Yang Jing turned around coldly. What's the matter? Zheng Xiangming first gave Lin Yuxi a comforting look, then said to Yang Jing, the northern government has arrested the murderer of Gong Sun Yu. What? Lin Yuxi opened his mouth instinctively. Yang Jing's brows also furrowed into a deep frown. Obviously, they couldn't believe it. However, Zheng Xiangming's expression was very serious. You didn't hear wrong. The murderer of Gong Sun Yu has confessed and been executed. Master Yang, we've all seen how you've been running around for your friend these days. Fortunately, the net of heaven has a long arm. Gong Sun Yu's spirit can finally rest in peace. You can also rest for a while. Of course, Yang Jing knew that since Zheng Xiangming had said so much, the one who would be executed would definitely be Gong Sun Yu's murderer. There was no mistake about that. As for after that, there was no further explanation. There was only one murderer. As for whether the murderer had an old grudge with Gong Sun Yu or was in a bad mood when passing by Biwu County that night, it didn't matter. Logical reasons could always be made up. Yang Jing, who had been hitting a wall these days, knew how hard it was to get the killer to come out as an explanation. The northern government's efficiency in solving cases is admirable. Yang Jing had always been a clear-headed person. At most, he was temporarily confused because of Gong Sun Yu's death. He should be sober now. So he cupped his hands and turned to leave. Master Yang, don't you want to see the murderer with your own eyes? Zheng Xiangming asked behind him. No need, Yang Jing said without turning back. Just send me a message after he's killed. There are a lot of things going on at home. I should go back. His strides were long and hurried. He didn't look like a winner. All right. Zhang Xiaoming watched Yang Jing leave, then turned back to Lin Yuxi and said with a sigh, Deputy Lin, I'm actually here to look for you. When I went to your residence, you weren't at home. Later, I heard that you were coming here, so I chased after you. Lin Yuxi just looked at him indifferently, waiting for him to continue. Zhang Xiaoming continued. The emperor ordered a thorough investigation of Master Lin Kuang's suicide. We urgently interviewed dozens of blue metal veterans. 19 of them were personally involved in the case. In the end, it was proven that Master Lin Kuang didn't arrest the wrong person. Tian Fun was a spy for the Pingping state. Master Lin Kuang didn't commit suicide out of fear of punishment. Instead, he took all the blame for the glory of the blue metal. Lin Yuxi's eyes went from surprise to sadness, and then suddenly fell into a daze. The Pingping state was a big basket. Anything could fit in it. But even this opportunity to fill the basket wasn't something that she had fought for herself. The emperor decreed that the nation's soldiers should not be taken lightly. Master Lin Kuang was posthumously conferred the title of Tianluo Count, and Master Uriel was posthumously conferred the title of Earthly Net Count. The memorial tablets are placed in the capital city's inspection office. All blue metal constables should be worshipped for generations. Since ancient times, opening up new territory was the most important merit. Most of the people who received nobility were from this merit. Solving cases and solving prisons was far from it. Jiang Xingyang also received nobility because of his military achievements, but it had nothing to do with his blue metal. There had never been anyone who received nobility with a blue metal in history. Lin Kuang and Uriel were the first. Of course, this was glorious. But Lin Yuxi felt more and more absent-minded. There was a heavy weight in her eyes that wanted to fall. Zhang Xiaoming's voice continued. The emperor bestowed the plaque with his own handwritten words, the two prides of the blue metal. She stared blankly at the word Jiang on the plaque of the Jiang residence. She felt that the voice was very far away. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.